The man screams and says to search everything because they have to catch this woman. At this time, the main character fearfully turns to the Lord and says that if he exists, then he asks that she not be found, and she prays for this. Suddenly, a man comes up behind her and asks if she is a night visitor or a stowaway. He also asks who she is. The girl saw Khalid and doesn't understand what he's doing here because he thinks that she needs to be on her guard. The man turns to Veronica and claims that they haven't seen each other for a long time. She objects and says that it's really just that, and he interrupts her and suggests that she drop her excuses and then asks what she's doing on his ship. Hearing this, the main character realized that this ship belonged to the prince of the Iron Empire Khalid, and she did not understand how she boarded the wrong ship. The prince thinks that it is already late and asks if she wants to tell him anything, and also asks if she is sure that she has not made a mistake with the ship, and then hugs her. The girl thought that she should leave before that, and at that moment, the ship moved so unexpectedly. The lady realizes that her body is not moving, and she wonders if there is an immobilizing poison on his palms, since she simply has no other explanation for all this. The guy hugs the girl tightly and says that she asked for it, and then puts her on the bed and presses her with his body. The judge announces that Veronica Hillsteel is charged with treason and sentenced to death, and then turns to the accused and asks her to make her final statement. The main character says that her last word, and the man interrupts her and asks if she has anything to say. She replies that of course, and then asks if love is a crime, because she simply loved the prince and does not understand why. Hearing this, the Lord does not understand how she dares to say such a thing after everything she has done, and considers her shameless. The man thinks that she has apparently gone completely mad. The Marquise wonders if it is true that the Count did not even come to court today, and thinks that he must simply not be able to comprehend that his only daughter has grown up like this. The judge offers to take her away, and the main character turns to the prince and calls him her love, and asks him to be happy. And at that time, she thought that she would be even happier. The guard locked the girl in the dungeon, and she pulled the pin out of her hair and then opened the chains, and she wondered if she played it right. The Count says that she did a perfect job, and Veronica says that she thinks that their deal is done, and thinks that it is time to pay her father, and then objects, and says that the client is more correct. At this time, the main character does not understand why she became so bold, but thinks that everything passed, simply because Veronica Hillsteel no longer exists. The girl remembers that she is the most ordinary commoner, who does not even know who her father is, and her mother sold her when she was only 10 years old. The woman looked at the girl and asked if her name was Lacey, and then asked what she could do. In response, the little girl remained silent, and the lady said that, although she is a beauty, she considers it good form because it will help her when she grows up. The girl turns to the lady and says that she is smart and can do a lot of things, and therefore asks to consider other options of how she can be useful to her, but let her not take into account only her body. Hearing this, the woman smiled and asked what other options she was talking about, and also wondered if she knew what the Hinshinso house was doing. The lady says that when a crime occurs, a witness is always needed, and some hire special actors for this, and therefore offers to become one of their actresses in the future. Madame says that no matter what role she is assigned, she must play it perfectly. The heiress, who was considered dead, the illegitimate child of an aristocrat, the maid for the Marquis, and her acting skills were unique. In Hyunshinso, there were many mercenaries and admirers, but actors were especially in demand. Madame assures the gentleman that he will not regret. One day, a strange order was received, because they needed a girl who could play the role of an adopted daughter for several years. And the little girl is not asking for revenge or deception, because someone just wants her to become their daughter for a while. The lady says that the fee is equal to her 10-year salary, and then says that it is a strange offer, and asks if it is not tempting, since she believes that with such money, she can even pay off her mother's debt. Hearing this, the main character thought that if she could pay her debts, she would no longer have to play someone else's role, and she would finally be free. And then she said that she agreed. For 6 years, Veronica's goal was quite clear, and that was to help the first prince become a powerful heir. Her client, who is also her father, had to find an aristocrat who would become his bride, and then she had to disappear, and every city had to know her. Although her entry into high society was delayed due to illness at her very first appearance, Veronica the Count's youngest daughter conquered everyone. The prince asks if she will give him her first dance, and she agrees. During the dance, the main character thought that this was great, because everything was going according to plan. Veronica turns to the prince and claims that she will make him king, and at this time, a competitor appears just in time. Her father easily found an angel girl who was perfect for him, but despite the fact that she stubbornly competed with her, albeit with a love spell, the prince eventually chose the angel and not her as expected. Veronica, blinded by jealousy, was supposed to poison his fiancée, and as the most beautiful girl in high society was supposed to become a rare villain. As planned, the poisoning failed, but proved to everyone that the life of the first prince and his entourage would always be under threat. The Duke says that he is sorry that he was never able to raise her properly, and at that time, the main character realized that the Duke of Hillsteel did not decide anything here, and the sentence was passed by the court. The girl thought that the story would end here, and then told Madame that she had returned. The woman says that she created a lot of trouble, and also arrived in a carriage for prisoners. Laces asks in surprise what troubles she is talking about, and also wonders if she has forgotten how talented she is, and says that everything went just perfectly. The lady offers to look at it, and the little girl asks in surprise if it is some kind of bonus. The woman objects and explains that it is a wanted poster, and believes that she was stabbed in the back by a client, her father. Hearing this, the main character asks in surprise how this could have happened, and she wonders if she did something wrong, and suggests that perhaps she got carried away and disrupted the plans of the Count himself. Lacey understands that even if this is so, she does not agree, because according to the Count's plan, the first prince endowed with many talents was supposed to rise higher and higher, and he even built his future by choosing a bride for him. But after that, the villain Veronica appeared and said that the prince would be hers or no one's, and it had to be a happy ending, and no matter what, everything was planned that way. The status of a countess can always be obtained or restored with the help of a groom, and she just wanted to pay off her debts and then calmly go to a place where no one would know her. The girl understands that then all that was left was to enjoy the second act in the play of her own life, because a happy ending was definitely waiting for her. Lacey screams and claims that she did everything she was told, and therefore does not understand what went wrong. Because for the last 5 years, all she did was fight all the troubles, and does not understand why and what it is, and how it happened at all. Madame thinks that it is because she got into the role too well, and thinks that it scared him. The girl screams and asks if she hears what she is saying, and the woman replies that she can get a double reward if she turns it in herself, and the little girl asks that she doesn't even know how to thank her. The main character asks about her money and what about her debts, and then asks if she is going to just get rid of her and throw her away like trash. The woman says that she understands that this is unfair, but she needs to save her own skin, and therefore suggests that she save her life and go to the port. The lady tells the little girl that she was her favorite child, so she lets her go because one day she will have to answer for everything, so she suggests that she take care of herself. The young lady thought that she was still able to disguise herself with magic, thanks to the grace of the Madame. Suddenly, the girl saw that the men had organized a hunt for her because they understood that their Lacey was their future 10 million gold. The guy said that she would die anyway, and therefore asked to let the family at least earn money from it. Hearing this, the main character thought that they are all like that, because children have not known pity since childhood. The guy claims screaming that they always find what they want, and sooner or later she will be in their hands, and therefore they offer to surrender. He says that he will spend the reward for her head wisely. The girl asks if they are ready to send her to execution, and then says, how is that possible, because they were together for so long? And at that time, she thought about this damn Count, because he put her on the wanted list so that she would definitely be caught and his name would remain pure. The little girl thinks that he is an idiot, and she will never let his plans come true, because she understands that she worked honestly and the reward was unexpected. The guy asks Lacey why she is acting so stupid, and then claims that she has nowhere to hide and nowhere to run, and therefore suggests that she surrender. He asks if she still does not admit her guilt, and then claims that the client is so dissatisfied that he even put a reward on her head. At this time, the main character thought that the freedom she had been striving for was almost in her hands, and she realized that she could not give up now and then jumped. The men were surprised, because they didn't understand why the rain started so suddenly. They thought Lacey was crazy, because she jumped into the water, and because of the rain, they couldn't fish out her body. At this time, the girl thought that she wanted them to leave already, and just go back and do other things. And after a few minutes, she realized that the dripping had almost stopped, and she thought that she was lucky, but she lost everything she had. The young lady understands that she is now an outcast of society, a criminal who committed treason, but she knows that she managed to save her life, but at what cost? Not much time has passed, but it seems that this is the ship that Madame had in mind. She believes that the main thing is that no one recognizes hers. The guards scream and tell them to search everything because they have to catch her. At this time, the main character turns to the Lord and says that if he exists, then she asks that she not be found and prays for this. A man approaches her and asks whether she is a night visitor or a stowaway, and also inquires which she prefers to be. 2 years ago, the Count turns to his daughter and tells her that a delegation from the Iran Empire will soon arrive, and so she should be prepared. Count Hillsteel is Lacey's client. The gentleman suggests paying special attention to the representative of the delegation, Prince Khalid. She asks if he is nagging his perfect daughter again, and then says that his concern is simply unbearable. The lady claims that he is a perverted perfectionist with inflated standards, and then asks if she has ever let him down, and therefore thinks that's enough of the lectures for today. The Count says that it is necessary to establish contact with him, and the girl continues to talk in order to improve trade with the West, and he simply cannot miss such an opportunity, having such a high position. The man says that his daughter is very smart, but she should be vigilant because her rival may always turn out to be a bigger fish. Aristocrats say that his ship was full of gold, and his delegation consisted of more than 100 people, and they brought an unheard-of amount of wealth, and the prince looked simply divine, and his mere appearance knocked everyone off their feet. The main character saw the prince of the Iran Empire, and she became interested in whether she would find a common language with him, but she hopes that everything will go well. The young woman thought that her father should not worry since he asked her for help, and she would do everything to ensure that as always it happened at the highest level. His Majesty approaches the girl and says that she looks like a dog, because she wags her tail quite a bit, and it looks just like a dog's. At this time, the main character looked at the prince, and she does not understand what he is doing, but she understands that she must be on her guard. Khalid turns to the lady and says that they haven't seen each other for a long time. She objects and says that she really is just. And he interrupts her and suggests that she leave her excuses and then asks what she is doing on his ship. Hearing this, the little girl realized that this was the ship of the Prince of the Empire, and she had boarded the wrong ship. He said that it was already late and asked if she wanted to say anything. His Majesty asks if she is sure that she entered the right room, and then hugs her. At this time, the main character thought that she should leave, but suddenly the ship moved unexpectedly. Veronica realized that there was an immobilizing poison on his palms, and she simply had no other explanation for all this. The prince laid the girl on the bed and then lay down on top of her and pressed her with his body. At this time, the main character does not understand what is happening at all and why she does not resist. When the servants saw the lady, they turned to the master and asked if it turned out that she had escaped, and he said that if they noticed her, they should immediately throw her off the ship because he considered it unthinkable that any mongrels could hide here. But later, he would visit His Highness again. The Crown Prince turns to Simon and orders him to stop searching, since there are no strangers here, and it is better to prepare for sailing, and he leaves the rest to him. Khalid says she hit him, and the first one was okay, but the second one was undeserved, and if anyone saw them, they would think he took her by force. She claims that is what he did. Khalid is the Crown Prince of the Iran Empire, who came to Weldon because of a trade treaty. The young lady understands that it was awkward, but everything worked out well because she was on the wrong ship, and says that if he pretends that he didn't see her, she will quietly leave. His Majesty asks if that means that beating people is a completely normal thing for her, and then shows the piece of paper and says, how could he forget that she is a wanted criminal? Lacey doesn't understand why he even recognized her, and the prince thinks that there's no need to worry about it so much, and then asks if they know each other well, because their first meeting is hard to forget, since she wags her tail just like a dog. Hearing this, the girl became interested in what kind of perverted flirting this is, and understands that usually she never deviates from a pre-prepared script. But at this time, it is incredibly difficult for her to keep her face when such things are said. The prince apologizes and explains that he doesn't know their language very well yet, and asks if puppy sounds better. The lady claims that his vocabulary is simply excellent, and in the future she will not even need a translator, but he clearly has problems with his eyesight, and then asks if he wags his tail. Veronica says that it is so stupid that she does not even want to answer. Fortunately, the angelic bride came to the aid of the irritated Veronica and smoothed out all the rough edges. Thanks to this, not without drama and irritation, but a trade agreement was concluded. The Duke tells his daughter that this is a good job, and therefore suggests being as cold as possible towards Prince Khalid. But it would be nice if he found a bride here, and gave her a little of his power. Hearing this, the main character thought that she hadn't tried very hard, but everything had gone well. And even though the first impression wasn't particularly pleasant, she thought that the prince felt like a fish in water, but he understood that a savage is a savage, even if he had hung himself with gold. Veronica reports that he showed up at the banquet almost naked and with a little girl, and then asks if he is really unable to buy himself clothes and wonders if he likes it when everyone laughs at him. And at that time, the little girl thought that if their first meeting had not been like this, she would have been much more reserved. The prince reminds her that she didn't choose her words carefully then, and touches her earring. The girl understands that her disguise magic leaves practically no traces, but all magical objects can be easily noticed, but it is much more difficult to use them, which is why she used her true face when playing the role of Veronica. The young lady does not understand how he quickly realized that she, Veronica, is that same bigger fish, since she carefully disguised herself, but he saw through her in no time. The main character was interested in how he was able to so quickly and accurately understand that the problem was in the earrings. His Highness says that he hopes that she will now be honest with him, and then asks who she is, his night guest, or a criminal trying to escape. She answers that it is something in between. The prince says that faithful dogs always follow their masters. That is why he then called her a dog, because she followed him like a faithful dog. And then he named the first prince Daniel. His Majesty says that he could take his place, and at this time the young lady reflects that if you think about it, the reason why all this fell on her head is the first prince. Khalid says that if this happened to her because of him, then he is ready to take on the heat of this hellish tribe. Hearing this, the little girl does not understand what he is trying to offer her, and thinks that this is another scam. The prince asks if she is ready to enter this hellish tribe with him and sail far beyond the sea. At this time, the main character thought that it turns out that her game was not so bad, and then asks if he is joking, because she thinks that they have different paths. And at this time, she thinks about the fact that she needs to try to talk to him. His Majesty reports that he saw them grab her, but doesn't know all the details, and then reminds him that he will repeat his question again, and asks who she likes to be more than a night guest, a stowaway or a faithful dog. The lady asks where the rare villain option is, and offers to choose any role since she can play everything. He asks if that means that for her, it's just a game, and suggests that it turns out that she only saw Daniel because of her role. The little girl agrees with him and says that it is true because this is what her client wanted, whose name she will not reveal. He asks if it is possible to ask for anything. Veronica doesn't understand what he's getting at, and then says that if they pay enough, she'll agree. The prince says that to the west of the Empire of Iran, there is a place called Surab, and it is a beautiful city in the middle of the desert. There are 3 rooms, one is full of gold, another silver, and the third is filled with rubies and sapphires, and she can choose any of them. The girl calls him a dear client and asks if he wants to hire her, and then asks what role she should play. He says that since she was able to play such a rare, sleepy villain, he wonders if the image of a model bride is within her power. His Majesty asks if she will be his bride, with whom he will fall in love at first sight, and anyone who sees them must believe in the sincerity of their feelings. The prince says that if she doesn't want to, he asks if this means that she prefers to be a criminal, and then says that if she can't decide, she cannot answer at all. The main character says that she really likes his methods, and then offers to put his hand around her neck. The young gentleman asks if he stole her first kiss or if she wants to refuse, and therefore offers to simply say what role she likes. The little girl says that she agrees to be the beloved bride, and he says that in that case, they will immediately sail away and kisses her hand. The ship's captain screams and orders them to prepare for departure because they are returning to the Iron Empire. The servant asks why they are sailing away so suddenly, and Simon explains that the crown prince has finished his business and even found a beloved, which means that there is no longer a reason to stay here. The gentleman asks the knight if he is upset because he thinks he has not found his lost youngest. The man replies that he has not been able to find out anything about her and that she is probably not even in this city, but he thinks that the crown prince has found himself a bride. And that is great. Simon reports that there is still one problem left, and Lanahan found a fugitive girl on the wanted list, and they are taking her with them, and therefore the crown prince was in a great hurry to return. Hearing this, the knight does not understand how she dared to seduce him, and then asks if he wants to say that she used her charms on him. The gentleman asks if he knows the character of his highness, and then says that he is not keen on women, which is why the methods of the Weldon aristocrats did not work. At this time, the girl thought that she was definitely lucky, and then, screaming, she said that she had not yet signed the contract, and asked why they were already so concerned about her, because in the morning they brought her a lot of food, and she did not know how she was supposed to eat it all. The baby is interested in whether the food is poisoned, but thinks that maybe it's worth trying a little, and after a few minutes she says that it's very tasty. But she understands that she needs to remain calm because she has the feeling that he knew that she would end up on his ship. Because why would a representative of the delegation leave a foreign kingdom so hastily? Because it is disrespectful. The main character reflects on the fact that perhaps he expected such an outcome. The young gentleman turns to the girl and says that he is not sure that she will be able to eat so much, and she says that everything is very tasty, and then asks if he should join her, because she has something to say. Veronica says that she will be frank, and that she should know what he is hiding before they sign the contract. Khalid claims that he has nothing to hide. And although he kept silent about some things, she was his goal from the very beginning, because he did not plan to sail so soon. But it turned out that he already got what he wanted. So he believes that there was no point in delaying any longer. The girl wonders if it means that he knew from the very beginning and agreed with Madame and arranged everything so that she would end up in his hands. Hearing this, the gentleman was surprised, and she claims that he just gave himself away. The main character understands that this is why he did not hand over the criminal, and it turns out that he knew about the earrings from the very beginning, which is why he ordered them to sail away immediately so that she would not change her mind and run away. The young lady reports that she finally understood everything, and at that time thought about the fact that he needed an actress who played the role of the villain Veronica, and then wonders if he needed an actress all this time, and probably found out everything about her, because he understands that all this was set up. The prince asks in surprise how he could have found out anything about her. The little girl claims that he knew for sure that she had a weapon, and that is why he held her hands, and knew about the magic earrings. Lacey thought that among all the children of Madame, she was the only one to whom she gave something so valuable, and it was their secret. But she understood that Madame had given her away, and that was why she could no longer work at Weldon, because she really was a good actress. The girl says that she thought that her relationship with Madame was special, but apparently not, and then asks how much it cost him. He claims that she speaks as if he did something bad, and the little girl asks if she is wrong. And at that time, she thought that since he put a lot of gold on his body, he is allowed to do anything. The young lady remembers that, although she left unnoticed, they immediately chased after her, as if they were waiting. But she thought that they were all there like brothers and sisters, and understands that it was they who drove her onto this ship. Khalid reports that it seems to him that the atmosphere has become tense, and the girl screaming claims that it is not just tense, because her plan and role in Weldon have all failed. The prince wonders if this means that all the bridges have been burned, and everything is fine between them, and also asks if he understood something wrong. Lacey realizes that it looks like it won't be easy with him, because he's a veteran of the game just like her, and she wonders if she'll be able to look into this man's soul, and then she kisses him. The little girl understands that he has an instant reaction with a beast aura and a natural sixth sense. She thought about how she hates aggressive men, but she doesn't really want to resist him because she is attracted to him and doesn't understand why he is so good at it. The girl understands that, in any case, this man also wants her, and then puts the knife aside and thinks that it is better for her to take advantage of this. The gentleman asks what it was, and then says that he thought she just wanted to talk to him. The lady reminds him that he seems to have mentioned that she might run away with him, and so suggests that they discuss the terms of their agreement. The little girl understands that now is not the best time to give in to emotions, and then says that he hired her, and it is important for her to understand what is required of her, and this cannot be forgotten because they are now in the same boat. When His Majesty told his assistant, he asked in surprise that it turns out that his chosen one is just an actress by contract, and this means that she will not rule with him in the future and protect his people. Simon wonders, when the contract ends, whether he will let her go. Simon El Saka is the manager of Hetronefti Khalid's right hand. The prince says that it may be, and the assistant asks in surprise how that is possible. His Majesty asks if he thinks he is being too loud and reminds him that he apparently forgot that he was talking to the crown prince. Simon says that since he is not happy with his tone, he should stand up and explain. The gentleman says that he has already stood up and explained, and then claims that that is all. Khalid says that he does not know all the details of her life, but as far as he knows, she is a professional actress and has played all her previous roles perfectly, including the image of Veronica. The assistant asks what kind of work this is, and when the gentleman looks at him, he says that he understands everything and remains silent. And a few minutes later, you ask His Highness why he decided to sign a contract with her. The prince says that he cannot say for sure, and simply suggests that this be taken as a fact because it will simply help him achieve his desired goal. The man says that since she is suitable for his so-called goals, the gentleman interrupts him and says that of course he likes her honesty. Simon claims that he is the only honest one here, and His Highness and her are real foxes. The prince says that he then instructs him to draw up a contract, because every time he opens his mouth to say something, his breath comes true, because he is bound to her by an oath, and they met her 10 years ago and gave each other an oath. At this time, the main character became interested in whether she did the right thing, because now she finally realized the reality of what was happening. The sea is unpredictable, so it is a little risky to go on a long journey, and she understands that getting from Weldon to Iron will be very difficult, even if someone is ready to risk their life for this. At this time, the Count does not understand how she dared to disappear, and he orders that she be found at any cost. Madame informs the mistress that their actors are not working at the moment, but she would recommend them it. Lacey understands that she was most likely lucky because no one will be able to find her, and she found herself an excellent shelter. But she does not understand why it was the bride and the bed that reminded her that she and Halit were doing something. The girl doesn't understand whether he is going to marry a stranger, and so suddenly, and she wonders why he wants to do this. The man tells His Highness that there are only 3 days left to travel and asks if he can think it over again. He states that his decision is final. Simon says that in a few days, they will cross the border and find themselves on their own land, and there will no longer be persecution, and he will have to explain himself to everyone. Khalid says that if he suddenly decides to find out what happened 10 years ago, he will be disappointed, and then says that she doesn't even remember him. The man asks in surprise what he plans to do, since he understands that sooner or later their agreement with her will end, and he claims that before that moment he will seduce her. The prince says that he must seduce her before the end of the contract so that she will stay with him after it. Simon asks His Highness in surprise if he will succeed, and at that time he thought about what he modestly asked and became embarrassed himself. His Majesty says that they are from different countries, and this worries him, and besides, he does not have much experience in love affairs. The assistant says that he knows this, and then asks how he is going to win her heart then. The gentleman says that he will have to come up with this because he believes that it is part of his duties. Simon says that he is confused because he doesn't understand anything about love, let alone seduction. The prince thought that this was the first time he was so nervous, and then asked what he should do and whether he should go naked. although it seems to him that all women like daredevils, but he thinks that some people might like timid men. The assistant asks in surprise if he is absolutely sure that seduction begins like this, and maybe some shameless water spirit has possessed him, and therefore asks him not to walk around naked in front of her. And if he is too assertive from the very beginning, she might just get scared of him. The prince says that his words confuse him, and he is not sure because he has no plan. He says that returning to the clothes, he can seduce her. And this means that he is his right hand, but he is a lousy advisor and also contradicts him. Simon surprised asks when he ever behaved inappropriately. Khalid explains that she has been through hard times and therefore feels he needs to help her forget about it. The assistant says that her previous life should not be more important to her than the future or the present. His Majesty says that even if they forget about their oath, and even if they do not carry it through the centuries, he will still be on her side because he can no longer lose her, and therefore believes that their future is in his hands. The young gentleman thinks that now she will be happy because he will take care of it and buy her everything she wants because she is his bride. Time is now on his side, and he will use her weakness to win her lonely heart. At this time, the main character woke up and thought that it was good because it was just a dream. But suddenly she heard a noise and did not understand why there was loud knocking. The girl opened the door and thought that the crown prince was taking a bath. But suddenly she saw a knight and asked if he was ordered to guard her. He answered that he was. The little girl thinks that this is very good, and she needs to know something, and then asks if she can ask him some questions. The knight claims that he will answer everything honestly. The main character asks, what are the rights of a woman in Arena, and are they the same as in Weldon? He answers that in Arena, after the wedding, the newlyweds discuss under what surname they will remain, and there are often cases when a woman became the head of the family. The young lady realizes that this is very different from her country, and then asks if the crown prince will be involved in state affairs. He replies that he does not know. Lacey wonders if the crown prince is involved in diplomacy. The man replies that he doesn't know, and the little girl reminds him that he said to ask about anything. The little girl looked at the prince and asked if he had arrived yet and suggested that he come to her since they needed to finish the contract. At this time, the prince looked at the contract and thought that he came right after the bath, but she does not care at all. The girl does not understand why he has such an expression on his face, and she wondered if contracts are also concluded in the Iron Empire. The gentleman says that parties A and B agree to the following points, and then sign this contract. First, party A was hired by the client party. B promises to conscientiously play the role of the bride with whom the prince fell in love at first sight. The client promises not to extradite party A to the Weldon Kingdom and provides party A with all necessary information, but also provides it with due material and moral support. If all points of the agreement are fulfilled, party A will have to receive a reward of 10 million gold. The contract can be concluded verbally or in writing, and after the contract is completed, the client never has to look for a contractor for the duration of the contract. The main character claims that they should discuss this point of how long she should be his bride. The man asks why there is no clause about what will happen if she fails to fulfill her role. The little girl claims that it is because this has never happened and will not happen in the future, and then agrees and says that she will sign this point. Lacey realizes that she deliberately skipped this point and then says that if the party AI does not fulfill their part of the contract, the client can demand any compensation. He asks if it can be anything, and the girl offers to sign this contract, and then reminds that they did not discuss the term of the contract, but she hopes that it will be valid for no more than 2 years. And whether the cheese will be too long, everything can end in collapse, as happened with Veronica. The prince understands that she had such a long contract and probably went through a lot. The lady says that if the contract lasts more than 2 years, it may cause suspicion because they will not have children. Hearing this, the gentleman began to cough, and the girl said that of course she understood that sharing a bed was inevitable since they would become newlyweds by contract, and therefore she thought it would be a good idea to use contraception. Lacey explains that she is not going to agree to an unsafe relationship, and then asks the prince if he even listens to her. Khalid lifted the girl onto Rocky and asked if the contract had already been signed, and since they were now a couple, they could do whatever they were supposed to do. She said that they needed to sign it. The man says that she can do whatever she wants with this agreement, but he will do with her what he wants, and then he puts the girl on the bed and starts kissing her. The prince realizes that before he could even begin, she fell asleep and thought that maybe she was very tired, and therefore wanted her to have a good rest. The knight asks the assistant to allow him to meet with the Master Lanahan commander of the border guard of the Empire, Irene, twin sister of Sanekun. Simon explains that he has already refused him several times, and his sister explains to Sanekun that she must meet with him. The girl screams and says that she also wants to see the crown prince because she cannot remain silent, and says that her brother just wants to see her and she wants to receive his blessing. The woman claims that she can be understood because she is the best mutant hunter and also participated in the cleansing of the Cereber. And it was thanks to this that she earned the prince's trust. The girl says that she wanted to meet him, and the man says that he heard that he has already blessed several people, and the Sinakon asks to allow her to do this. The man says he is sorry, but the assistant objects and says that this is not true at all, because everything is fine, and Sananahan is very important to all of them. The knight believes that they should behave with dignity, because despite their low origins, they were allowed to work for the imperial family, and therefore he understands perfectly well that sometimes they cause a lot of trouble. The man claims that they are both very talented, and that the crown prince personally hired them, and therefore suggests not to be too strict with himself. At this time, Her Majesty asks if she took a bath after him, and the lady replies that she did, because he himself suggested that she do so. The main character thought that she hoped that the paralyzing poison was coming from under his nails, and then said that it was not very easy for her. The man asks in surprise what happened, and she explains that the maids were behaving strangely, and she didn't really understand them because she doesn't know their language. Lacey remembered lying in a bath filled with aromatic herbs and thinking it was heaven while her body was being thoroughly massaged. The maids suddenly started laughing, and the little girl didn't understand what was happening to them and why they had such a reaction, and then thanked them for their work. The girl said that the maids started whispering among themselves, and she doesn't even know what they were chatting about. At that time, the maids were discussing that their mistress was very beautiful and good. The little girl reports that the sudden appearance of the bride at the crown prince's should have caused suspicion or alarm, but they were so kind to her. The prince thinks that she speaks as if she worships her, and this is something bad, but the girl objects and says that this is not the point, and thought that she just felt a little awkward. Khalid says that the bath, and he is glad that she took it, but now asks to let him apologize since last night did not happen, because he could not do anything, because she suddenly fell asleep. The main character objects and says that this is not it, because she told him that she needs time and is not ready yet. His Majesty asks in surprise if this is what she asked for, and then he kisses her. The little girl pushes the gentleman away and asks him to wait, but he claims that they are alone in this small room and considers it a miracle that he lasted so long. The guy presses closer to the girl and then lifts her dress. She screams, asking him to wait, and then stop, because suddenly she saw something and asks what it is. The young man says that she saw Tara, and then asks if this is the first time she sees this. Unlike Weldon, Irina still has magic, so each person there has their own magical power. Especially artificial ones can even give their powers a form. And that is how the guardian spirit of Teru appears. The prince explains that he is the only person who is able to support Tara even beyond the borders of the Empire, and therefore suggests not to worry because the marshmallow will not harm her. Khaled asks if they will continue. At this time, the girl thought that she really wants, and even really, because his gentle touch and warm hugs, and especially these hot kisses, are incredibly pleasant. The main character understands that there is one problem, and she can kiss him, but she just can't do it because it's her first time. Lacey recalls the words of Madame that only the game is important, and if she lies and believes in her lie, then the interlocutor will believe her, and therefore suggests always getting into her role even if her performance seems unrealistic to them. Madame always told them not to give their hearts to anyone, because in the end, it could end up in a sad way. The little girl mumbles that it's risky, and he asks in surprise what she's talking about, since he didn't hear anything. The girl explains that she said that she would not tolerate safe relationships, and he says that he took care of everything, and even one bracelet would eliminate the possibility of conception. The prince reports that she then went to the bathroom and put on all three, and so he thought it was a sign, and they could become one. Hearing this, the main character remembered the maids, and now understands why they were whispering and giggling so joyfully, because she didn't know that it was a contraceptive. The gentleman says that if she understood everything, then he now suggests going to bed. The little girl says that she would like to add one more point to their conversation, and that is to limit excessive sex hearing. This the guy asks in surprise if he is like that. The girl explains that when the role of Togo requires, it is one thing, and then asks if she is obliged to play it all the time, and says that in public, of course, they will play a sweet couple. The prince says that she can do as she wants, and she gives him a contract and asks him to sign it, and then asks if he has chosen a name for her, since he understands that she will not be Veronica in his country. Khalid thought that she would use her real name and then asks if that is true, and the lady objects, and says that of course not, because they think it is extremely dangerous. His Majesty says that she will be a Nellis, because it translates as a sea fairy, and then asks what it is, and if she doesn't like it. At this time, the main character thought that this smile of his and this man clearly has a mind of his own, but he understands that Nalatsi sounds good, and then signs the contract. The knight asks if the captive is currently acting up, because he knows that the marshmallow has scared her badly. Simon says that she managed to hide for a very long time, and he wonders if she herself might have used magic. The man asks the gentleman for forgiveness, and then explains that he somehow didn't think about it, and the assistant asks if he noticed anything like that about her. The knight apologizes and explains that he did not see her use magic. Simon looks at the captive and says that they all give up sooner or later and will watch her until she starts talking, and as soon as they return to their homeland, this will be over. Simon asks, "How about taking her magic?" And the man says that it is even worse than taking life, and asks if that is true. The gentleman asks how Lanahan is doing. Arthur replies that not very well, and when he started to leave, she was ready to finish him off to find out where he was going, and even got it a couple of times. Hearing this, the assistant understood where the bruises on his body came from, and then said that they were approaching the border, and it was necessary to strengthen security. Simon says that he came to see the Crown Prince's bride, and apologizes for delaying the formal introduction. The lady says that everything is fine, and that they are old acquaintances. The girl says that she is grateful to him, and therefore hopes that everything will be fine for them in the future. The man says that he is grateful to her for her mercy, and promises that he will be on her side no matter what happens, because her generosity is amazing. The prince suggests that she first do what he asked, and then says that lately she has not been able to sleep, and she has not been feeling well. Simon asks the lady if he can examine her, and the girl agrees. The man looks closely into her eyes, and then touches her face, and she does not understand what he is trying to find. The assistant reports that it does not look like she is sick, but suggests that perhaps she does not tolerate long voyages well because she is so tiny. At this time, the main character realized that he is not only the prince's right hand, but also a doctor. Halit wonders if she just needs to eat more, and asks what about the rest. The man replies that she is healthy, and the prince says that thank God, because he was a little worried about her, because she is very fragile. At this time, the little girl thought that he was a talented person, and Khalid's confidant, and therefore thought that she needed to be friends with him. His Majesty informs that he will check their course and return, and then orders them to take care of his bride, and also to watch their language. Lacey asks what the Crown Prince said about her. The man replies that he mentioned that she would become the new ruler of the Sareb, and in the future, the beautiful empress of the Eorin Empire. The lady asks if this is all, and he says that he also heard that His Highness fell in love with her at first sight. Simon thought that she doesn't know their language well, and loves red wine, and is very picky about food, so it is necessary to serve her only the best dishes, and then says that first of all, you need to look at her reaction when choosing a dish. At this time, the main character does not understand what kind of joke this is and what he wants to achieve by stuffing her with food. The man says that he still doesn't know her well enough to serve her with dignity, and at that time, he began to wonder if he had said too much. The main character explains that, frankly speaking, she doesn't quite understand him, and then wonders why he doesn't ask anything about her himself. Simon reports that he tried to understand her by observing her actions and the coldness of her thoughts, and the sailor who saw her on the day of her arrival did not recognize them. But many here do not know the language of Weldon and what happened there. The gentleman explains that, of course, therefore, even those who saw the wanted poster did not understand what was written there. At this time, Lacey remembered the conversation with the prince and how Simon was watching them, and she wondered if this meant that he had already formed the wrong impression of her. The girl asks him if he really doesn't care, and if he's upset that she became the prince's bride. He explains that, as he said earlier, he had his reasons, so from now on he will judge her by her actions. The main character thinks that perhaps it is for the best that the conversation took place honestly, and therefore thanks him, and then says that he hopes that in the future they will get along. The lady saw that the gentleman had changed somehow, and asked what was wrong with him. He answered that nothing, and then asked if he could help her with something. Lacey says she would like to ask about the bracelets, and then asks if all the women in Arena wear them. He says not all of them, and on the ship only. His Highness has them, and it is a very expensive thing that was made especially for her. The young lady asks in surprise if this means that Halit values them. The man replies that this is probably true, and at that time the little girl thought that there were several bracelets, and it turns out that she might have a rival. Simon reports that since they have already started talking about the crown prince, who is the most powerful heir to the throne in the Iran Empire, and then reports that he is not only very educated, but also a master of martial arts. The gentleman claims that he is the owner of an outstanding appearance, which women literally went crazy over, and then screaming says that he has never been deprived of female attention because the prince is ideal but still has not taken a single concubine. A man thinks that his master does not date women. Upon hearing this girl assumes that maybe he had some partner, and she wonders if this is true. The main character reflects on the fact that if he didn't date women, it means that he could sleep with men, and then says that it turns out that she didn't know the crown prince at all. The lady understands that Simon praised him, but somehow and then asks how they reacted when he decided to take an unknown woman as his wife, and thinks that this aroused some suspicions in him. Simon reports that some were surprised, but they had no doubt that this decision was right. She asks why in surprise, and the man explains that because someone had finally been found who could steal His Highness's heart, which had been tightly closed to everyone until then. The gentleman thought that because of the ban, he cannot talk to her about his magical power, but he understands that everyone falls in love with him because the prince only has to look into someone's eyes. At this time, Khalid enters the room and says that they got along too quickly, and then tells the assistant to leave. The little girl thought that they didn't even have time to share a secret, and she had a lot of questions to which she didn't have time to hear the answers. Simon suggests that the gentlemen have a good rest because the journey will soon end. The girl thought that she was sure that the prince was kind, but the people in front of him are literally always tense. His Majesty asks if the conversation was a success. She replies that it was quite fun to chat with him, but he came and it all ended. The prince says that since she is so interested in him, he asks if he can stay longer next time and tells her not to get too close to him. Lacey asks if he is jealous. The guy screams and asks how he can be jealous of his subordinate. The main character wonders what happened because he was in such a hurry when he left. He explains that the thing is that the captive tried to escape, and some crew members were injured because of her destructive power. His Majesty wonders if they have started treating them, and the knight screaming asks why she ran away, and he does not understand how she could even think about killing the crown prince. The gentleman explains that he is worried that she was able to get out because her limbs were shackled, and at that time he thought that most likely she had an accomplice. The guard asks why they should leave this captive alive, and then turns to His Highness and claims that they must get rid of her immediately. The prince says that he understands him, but his principles of treating prisoners are not subject to discussion or change, and then says that she will definitely be punished as soon as they get to the irons, and he promises this. The knight says that he understands and apologizes for making him worry. He is also glad that they captured this prisoner in time, and she was unable to escape. Hearing this, the main character is surprised and asks why she needs to be kept alive. His Majesty replies that it is not that important, but it would be better this way, and then asks what is bothering her. The main character explains that she simply received a lot of useful information from Simon. He thinks that there is too much paper written on it, and then asks if she is sure that these are just small notes. The little girl says, what can she do, because her protection and freedom depend on this, and therefore she must approach such things responsibly, and then asks if her client would not want to thank her even more for this. The girl asks if he has forgotten, and then reminds him that he himself said that he would not skimp on support. And she talks about material support. The gentleman asked what she wanted, and the lady thought that she wanted freedom, which had always been what she wanted most of all. And at that time, she understood that let's say she would get it, but she didn't know what next. The main character thinks that she needs to find a place where the shadows of the past will not overtake her, and in such a place, she would like to simply enjoy life. However, she understands that she cannot give in to emotions. The prince asks if she can hear him, and Lacey replies that she would just like more money and only money. Simon, standing on the deck, says that a person who has no magic at all is so unusual, and the knight thinks that their princess is so special. The gentleman says that she also has a rare eye color, and purple is a very noble color, and apparently God rewarded her with kindness, although he deprived her of magic. The assistant says that he is really looking forward to the moment when they cross the border to find out what she is capable of, because he understands that she was just being friendly. But after so many years of communicating with the crown prince, this is already like a breath of fresh air that can bring tears. The knight asks the master in surprise if he is crying, and Simon explains that it is just a memory, and he understands that His Highness's decision was correct. The man says that he now understands why the gentleman was so insistent about going to Weldon. Hearing this, he objects and claims that there were other reasons, and everything turned out not only well, and thought that perhaps this would help in the purifications. Simon says that he feels like he took too much of his time because he understands that he has to patrol, and then he looks at the sky and thinks that now everything will be okay because she was here by the command of the sky. The assistant says that time is needed to reveal the whole truth to her, and first, she needs to study their history. Otherwise, she will form the wrong impression of them. The prince asks for forgiveness that so much has fallen on her because of his decision, because he thinks that he has ruined everything. Lei says she just needs money. He asks in surprise if her words earlier didn't mean she needed something else besides money. The little girl replies that it didn't mean anything, and the guy thought that everything was not supposed to be like this because his heart ached. She says that she will play her role as long as she gets paid. Halit says that he can really do everything she wants. The girl says that she already said that there will be enough money. Simon, screaming, turns to His Highness and reminds him that he said that he was going to seduce her. He says that this is true, and the man asks why. Then because he thinks that it turns out that his charms don't work on her. The prince says that everything is complicated because she is not as simple as he thought. And sometimes it even happens that this girl is unattainable for him. At this time, the main character thought that she always wanted freedom so much. But to be honest, she never thought that she would really be able to get it. And she thinks that maybe the thing is that she has already gotten used to such a life. And then they extended a helping hand to her so quickly. Lei understands that he cares about her and looks at her with such a warm and tender look and says her name as if she is very important to him. However, she thinks that love is a clause that is not in their contract, and she sees that this man so desperately needs her. Suddenly, the little girl saw a tiger cub and thought that he was very huge, and that's why it seemed to her that she would never get used to it because she was scared. Lacey hopes that he doesn't eat people and understands that you can't let fear get the better of your mind. And at that time, she thought that maybe she should try to escape. The lady understands that this is Terra, and she is interested in how one could even think of giving magic such a form. When the main character saw the prince, she said that he finally came and calmed down this tiger cub, and he asks if they became friends. The girl screams and asks where he was, and wonders how he could leave her alone with this beast. The little girl understands that of course she is glad that he looks rested, but she thinks that she no longer wants to be alone with the tiger, at least until they become friends, and then tells him not to leave her with him anymore. Khalid says that he has some suggestions, and this is in addition to her main task, and they will have to perform the blessing together. The girl asks in surprise what she will have to do. He answers that nothing special, and she just needs to be near him, because that is enough. The main character assumed that Irina's people were superstitious, but she didn't think that it was so superstitious. After all, it was all for the sake of the ceremony of receiving a blessing. The prince reports that very soon they will cross the border of the Iron Empire, and if they do not hold a ceremony and ask for a blessing from the ruler of the seas, they can get caught in a storm, and if they are really unlucky, they will forever lose their way home. Hearing this, the little girl thought that it seemed he was hiding her, and did not know if it was normal that now all the crew members would see her, although he understood that everything was going well, and this was somehow suspicious. His Majesty asks if she is worried, and Lei asks why she should be worried, because he himself said that she does not need to do anything, and at that time she thought about whether he really wants to do this in front of the maids. The prince explains that everyone is nervous before meeting the ruler of the seas, and then says that he will step aside for now. At this time, the lady does not understand what she expected and believes that there is no need to think about unnecessary things because she just needs to play her role, and she needs to work, only work. Khalid announces that his bride will also be participating in this ceremony, and Simon asks if this will be too much of a shock for her. The gentleman believes that sometimes it is simply necessary to shock people so that they begin to show their feelings. The main character understands that this is her first time out, and she really missed the fresh air, but she became curious about the strange sounds that attracted her attention. The girl realized that thousands of people bowed before her, and this roar was generated by people kneeling. And at that time, she remembered the words of the master, that no one doubted the correctness of the decision of the crown prince, and everyone wants to look at the prince's bride, but no one dares to raise their head without permission. Lacey looked at the night sky and realized that it was very beautiful. And then she took a step because she understood that it was a little scary, and if she had frozen, everyone would have continued to stand with their heads down. The maid put a cape on the mistress, and the lady thought that this cape was so thin but warm, and understood that this was another magical item. The little girl thinks that it doesn't matter that he is the crown prince of the empire, but she became interested in where so much goodness came from and how much he has in total. A few minutes later, the main character looked at the tiger and did not understand why they were alone again, and then asked why he was looking at her so intently. The main character thought that she should be the perfect bride, and believes that she would react to the tiger in approximately the same way, and she believes that she simply should not look at him and think that there is no one there. The prince saw that Mr. Zephyr himself approached her, and he had never seen him be friendly with anyone except the owner. Of course, Simon believes that she will definitely become the wife of the crown prince. At this time, the girl does not understand why he is still next to her, and she has tears of fear because she is not used to such a big cat always being next to her. Lei tells the prince to hurry up because he needs something other than money, and right now, moral support would be very useful. The knight says that His Highness has arrived, and the blessing ceremony is about to begin. The woman suggests looking at the crown prince because he himself looks like the ruler of the seas. The gentleman touched the lady's hand and said that it was warm, and she was relieved. And then he said that, for a moment, he thought he had made a mistake, but now he understands that it was not in vain that he chose her. The little girl looked at the jewelry and realized that she had never seen such riches, and she wondered if they were so serious about it. Lacey says in surprise that all this is not something that can be prepared for in just one day, and she is sure that many have worked tirelessly, and she must do something too. The prince reminds that he told her to just be near him. Khalid tells the little girl not to be afraid of anything, but at that time she thought about whether she should be surprised or afraid. And then she saw the maids, and it seemed to her that they were somehow unusual. Suddenly, the sea was raging, and the girl asks if it is a tsunami. The gentleman hugs her and says that he is with her. The main character understands that the situation was becoming more and more unclear, but one thing was clear, that something from under the water was looking right at them, and she thinks that Khalid doesn't seem to be worried at all. Suddenly, there was silence, and the prince asked if everything was okay. The maids began to sing a song at this time, and the girl saw that he had no sword or armor, but she really felt safe next to him. Khalid tells her to open up hearing this. The little girl doesn't understand what he's doing because his gaze is scary. He takes her hand and asks her to look carefully. Lei understands that at that time, she did not yet know the true meaning of the blessing ceremony and considered it just another superstition, and she could not even imagine what kind of creature she would have to face. That very day, she encountered that side of herself that she didn't even suspect because she didn't know about it then. But everything became clear only after a long time. And perhaps that creature knew her better than she did. His Majesty reports that they have finally arrived in the Iran Empire. The main character heard the song and reflects on the fact that she doesn't know the language or the words, but for some reason she understands everything. Suddenly, he raised his head and said that a part of her lives in each of them, and this is the sun that illuminates their future. Lacey thinks that something tells her that this creature understands the whole message of the song, and then says that it is somehow strange. And the prince greets her and congratulates her because they have finally arrived in the Empire of Irony. Khalid explains that everything is fine because Her Highness has been blessed, and this is a blessing that is given once in a lifetime. The little girl says she'd like to clarify a few things, but first suggests letting her go. She claims she's fine and just wants him to put her down for a minute because she needs to talk to him. The lady turns to the prince and states that they need to talk alone and asks if he understands. Simon tells the princess that it is better for her to stay with His Highness for now because it will be a little difficult for her now. But her relationship with the prince can calm down a lot and come to its senses after the ceremony. The main character asks what is on his hand. He answers that it is his teru, and it appeared because they had already crossed the border. She says that she understands, and then asks what connection they were talking about. The man explains that their magical powers complement each other, and therefore one just needs to be near the prince to feel better, and all the inhabitants of the empire have it. Khalid tells his assistant that it is already deep night, and he thinks that it is time for him to go. And then he says that Irina is an empire of magicians, and the end. Believe me, he needs to rest, and offers Simon to eat, drink water, and entertain himself in some way. He says that he understands and leaves. The little girl says that she is now interested in what is going on with the border's communication and magic. The assistant says that he will be brief, and then says that the borders are indeed different from the lands of the Iron Empire and the Weldon Kingdom. At first, on the lands near Weldon, they are not imbued with magic at all, but as they approach Iran and the concentration of magic begins to increase, their ship recently crossed a place from which there is enough magic in the air to support Toulouse. The girl asks what kind of creature they saw recently. He explains that it was a dragon, the ruler of the seas, maintaining the balance of magic in the ocean, and the entire water surface is his territory. And this dragon is called Aegir. The man explains that in reality, the dragon rarely shows its true form, and usually people see only a blurry shadow, but it seems that he is interested in her. Halit says that she should rest and calm down now, but thanks to someone this will no longer happen, and then says that that's enough for today, and the rest will be tomorrow. The little girl wonders if he will definitely tell her about everything tomorrow. Simon heard this, and thought that she treated everything quite calmly, and was so interested in everything, and therefore thought that the girl would quickly adapt to life in Cerberus. The assistant says that, of course, but only today, and the gentleman interrupts him and takes the girl in his hand and claims that now she needs to rest. The prince tells the girl that he will leave and she will be able to sleep peacefully, and the lady asks if it would be better if she leaves, as she understands that he cannot sleep here because of her. She says that this is his cabin after all, and she is only a guest in it. The guy asks in surprise what she is talking about, and the lady replies that she is talking about indifference to her partner, and explains that it is all a game, and she is not his partner or a couple, so she should know her place. The little girl says that she can leave and let him just say it. The young gentleman tells her to stop, and then comes closer to her and offers to look at him and say, all this looking him straight in the eyes. Khalid claims that she is his partner, and he has no other woman, and if he said no, then it means there really is no one, and therefore there is no need to invent anything extra, because she can always ask him a question. The prince apologizes for being so abrupt, and then suggests that she rest. The girl asks him to wait, and at that time, she thought that she doesn't know why she did it, but she just didn't want to hurt him. Lee clearly saw that her words hurt him, and there was a feeling that she shouldn't have done that to him, and then she goes up to the guy and kisses him. The young man asks in surprise what she just did, and the girl explains that she asked for forgiveness. He says that this act, and does not know how she is, but there has never been anyone near him, except her, and no matter how much time has passed, this remains unchanged. The prince explains that the bracelet does indeed have special functions, but he gave it to her as the most ordinary decoration, thinking that it would fit her perfectly, and neither he nor the priests told her about it. The little girl realized that all those girls were priestesses, and then says that she is so glad that she was wrong, and the young gentleman thinks that therefore it is not she who should apologize, but he. The main character understands that her heart was beating madly when he looked into her eyes asking for permission, and when he took her in his arms, she was finally able to understand what her heart wants. His Majesty asks what he should do with her, because he can no longer restrain himself. At this time, the young lady thought that sooner or later, this had to happen, and she was prepared to endure unusual sensations or even pain. However, she understands that she should not endure it, because in fact she was really waiting for this. Khalid thinks it's lucky that their agreement and relationship are so cleverly intertwined, and so he'll probably take advantage of the moment. Lacey realizes that as soon as his breath touched her hands, her fingers began to bend on their own, so gentle and slow, as if he was teasing her. The man says that he still doesn't know her real name, and the girl replies that she is Lay. The prince says that of course Lay is the given name, and then suggests that she not hold back and tell him her name. Lying in bed, the little girl says that she fell, and then wonders if people didn't think she was weak, because she understands that first impressions are especially important, and she fell right in front of everyone. Khalid claims that she did it completely, and was even too good, and she also fell right into his arms and asks if she remembers it. The gentleman reminds her that Simon himself told her that the dragon does not show its true form to everyone, and believes that no one could be better than her, and therefore suggests not to forget that she is unique. Madame explains to the Count that, as she had already said earlier, she also does not know about her whereabouts. He reports that he searched the entire capital, but did not find any traces, and then asks who, if not them, and their people, could have pulled this off. The gentleman claims screaming that they had planned it all from the very beginning, and asks if that is true. The woman asks what nonsense this is, because she believes that she has fulfilled all the points of the contract, and moreover has done even more than required, and then asks who dares to tell her anything. Madame reminds that he even tried to finish her off, because she was too good, and then says that her children do not contradict her and follow her orders without question, and therefore says that he should not even dare to reproach her for anything. The woman says that she herself would like to bring back such a good actress. The man claims that she is wanted and will no longer be able to act, and therefore suggests simply imagining that she has fallen into eternal sleep, since she believes that she will not live anyway, since she is wanted everywhere. The lady says that this is great news, and then thanks him for helping her save her reputation, and calls him a dear client. The Count says that he is here to make a new order, and then says that he wants neither Veronica nor her actress to ever appear in this country again. Hearing this, the woman thought that Lacey had done a great job with him, and then asked what reward he was offering her. And the man reminds that the reward for Veronica's head has already been announced, and he will give her and her people this money. The lady says that it is accepted, and then thanks him, and hopes that in the future they will use their services again. When the man left, the woman thought that Count Hillsteel was a rather strange person, but none of her children had ever earned more than Lacey, and she wanted to make her her successor. The woman looked at the wanted poster and thought that Lacey should not take it personally, because she believes that business is business and nothing personal, and they are obliged to work for the benefit of their clients. The lady with red hair asks the young gentleman what he plans to do now, and also wonders if he will silently eavesdrop like that. The man says that she probably already knows, and then agrees with his sister that he was eavesdropping, and therefore suggests not to worry since he was not visible. The woman thought that he was a sneak, and then asked if she was ashamed to rummage through someone else's underwear. The guy says that if she didn't want this, she shouldn't have interfered in his affairs in the first place, and then asks where Lacey is. Madame tells the mentor that this girl is not his, and simply offers to answer the question, and then asks if he thinks that if she knew she would not tell him about her whereabouts. The lady understands that he heard the Count's threats against her, but still does not believe that she really does not know where this girl is, and does not understand why he is so obsessed with her. The man tells his sister that he knows she is the only person who could help her disappear. She agrees with him and says that the problem is that the situation has gotten out of control, and the cabin prepared for her remains empty, and it does not remind her of anyone. The guy hugs his sister and says that she is right here, because he believes that everything will be fine with Lacey, and when they meet again, he will definitely congratulate her. But it is interesting whether Lacey will be looking forward to this meeting. The man says that he also has a little business, and if Lacey shows up, he asks her to let him know about it right away, and then offers to believe her because she expects a decent reward. The lady thought that it had been a very busy day, and his character had never been simple, and she was even surprised that her brother had been extremely accommodating today. And it seemed to her that he had no information about the girl. The woman knows that the earring she gave to Lacey can not only change a person's appearance, it also allows her to find out where she is, and she is glad that only she has this opportunity, but she will take this secret with her to the grave. Madame reflects that she, as her best student, must have learned the lesson that it is better to be able to stab someone in the back than to blindly trust and be betrayed. At this time, the prince says that she still trusted him a little, and if she didn't want them to get closer, she could have simply drawn a line. The guy thinks that he was barely holding back, but her kiss finally broke his willpower. He understands that the girl first acted as if she was not going to lay claim to him, and then she kissed him as if she needed it herself. And today, they became closer to each other. Khalid thinks that even if this kiss and laughter were fake, his heart started dancing. But he understands that it happened even earlier when she presented herself to everyone in all her splendor and looked at him without taking her eyes off him. And his world stopped, and yet her moans gave her away. The man understands that she makes his heart flutter just by being near her, but for her he is not an acquaintance who has not earned her trust. The guy knows that everything happened 10 years ago when the little girl asked him to promise that he would take her away in 10 years. Just a few words that later became his salvation and curse at the same time because he understands that time has passed. The assistant turns to His Highness and informs him that he needs to go down for a while. The gentleman asks what happened, and he informs him that it was the prisoner who committed suicide. The prince says that this is enough and offers to tell the rest on the way. When the main character was sleeping, she had a dream, and she says that she has to leave. The man with red hair turns to Lacey and says that it is wonderful because she has learned all the basics and therefore suggests never forgetting them while working. The man says that she should use these techniques only when it is necessary to tease and provoke the client, while always remembering that she should not get close to the client under any circumstances, and then suggests repeating everything from the very beginning. The main character says that she has to leave and she has to run, but the gentleman suggests that she speak too slowly, and then asks if he taught her that. At this time, the prince wonders how this happened, and the assistant explains that she bit off her tongue. Khalid wonders what kind of idiot pulled the gag out of her mouth. Simon says that the guards saw the wine and realized that it was just excellently aged, and then they decided to try it and drink to the successful completion of the ceremony, and in general to all the good things in life. The man suggests that they drink more quietly because he understands that if they are caught, they might not get off with just a salary cut. The guard says that others are drinking now too. The man looked at the captive and did not understand what was going on, and thought that she was feeling sick, and therefore decided to take out the gag. He suggested that she wait because he would deal with it quickly. The knight says that she has not yet been fully interrogated, and if she dies now, it will be the end for them. His Majesty wonders if he says they did it out of joy, because he is returning home after 2 years of wandering. Simon says that he is very sorry, because it is his fault that he did not keep an eye on them, and he believes that if he had been more attentive, this would not have happened. His Majesty suggests not to blame himself, since he is already working hard, and claims that it is not his fault, and then says that he is sure that she has an accomplice. The gentleman understands that it is useless to interrogate them now, since they were drunk, and it is impossible to punish them harshly for that. The knight says that he is guilty, and then he says that Mr. Simon keeps saying that it is his fault, but they got drunk and made a mistake because he understands that they were supposed to guard the captive and they should not have drunk at all. The assistant turns to the man and says that he hasn't even tried a drop of alcohol, and says that he still allowed this to happen, and they are ready to take responsibility for what happened. Khalid understands that they have been away from home for so long, and everyone has worked hard to catch the traitor, and he talks about him as well. But the past can't be brought back, so he simply suggests starting all over again, and will look for new leads. Hearing this, the knight asks in surprise what new clues he is talking about. The master explains that she had an accomplice, and that is obvious, and then asks why she committed suicide instead of trying to escape. The man asks if he wants to say that it was not suicide, but that she was killed, and that it was done as soon as they crossed the border. And the prince asks why now. Simon assumes that she wanted to use magic, and the gentleman claims that then he would have noticed its residual traces, because in any case, they would begin an investigation. The assistant says that then they will take care of everything with Sanakan and suggest that he go to Her Highness the Princess. The gentleman claims that they cannot relax until they finally cross the border because there are still mutants. Khalid understands that while they were in Weldon, everything was quiet, but he does not think that attacks will happen anytime soon. And besides, he is the only one who has a full-fledged Teru, and therefore he will react quickly if they are in danger. Sinahan says that he still doesn't have it, and the gentleman suggests assigning security to Lanahan, because for some reason he's sure that she'll do something. The assistant says that this is a great solution, and the knight says that this is very good, because this way she won't be able to get into trouble. Khalid tells the assistant that if this happens again, he will have to answer, and then asks if he understood him and pulls his cheek. At this time, the man realized that his master was still angry. The woman says that she does not feel any living energy and thinks that this is a pity, but she understands that she must try hard to make the owner happy. The lady says that the mother realized that it was not in vain that she carried her, because her baby will soon be born. A week later, the main character sitting on the deck realizes that the bright sun and the cool breeze and the calm and quiet waves and the weather are simply magnificent. She thinks that such a walk is the dream of any person. The girl, while in the cabin, realized that a comfortable temperature and humidity were always maintained there. And all this was thanks to the magic of the Iron Empire. And now you can even furnish the cabin to your taste. The little girl can't believe that this previously gloomy place can look so luxurious. Sanahan asks if she is ready to start their lesson today, and the lady says that, of course, she is ready. Lacey says that there are only 4 elements of magic that a person can possess. But even if people possess the same type of magic, their abilities may differ slightly, and then asks if this is correct. The girl understands that she will understand and remember everything in order to later use it against them, and she shows maximum curiosity, diligence, and thirst for knowledge. The lady wonders if he has mastered the element of water and can calm people and heal them. The gentleman claims that everything is correct, but she says that the Teru is created in the image of its owner. The girl reflects on the fact that he is kind and non-conflictual. So the snake looks cute and thinks that this is very convenient. Lay says that he couldn't use his powers when he was in Weldon, and then asks why. The man explains that this is necessary for the balance between the 2 continents, and he already mentioned that the central continent is a land that has lost magic, but in Arena it is still alive. But all this is, of course, the consequences of whose choice. The Lord says he will rearrange each one for her, the dragon that guards the border, the tree that has taken root in the very center of the earth, the great spirit of the north and the sacred fresh green that lives in the castle of thorns. They were chosen to maintain balance on the earth and influence its future. The guardians have stripped the central continent of magic, so all living beings are forbidden from using magic outside of Irano. Simon reports that people can of course cross borders and travel to another continent, but only on the condition that they do not use magic. The main character wonders if the prince can embody his Teru outside of Irina, who thinks it simply amazing. The assistant agrees with her, and then claims that His Highness is strong, so his tiger is almost like a real one. Hearing this, girl does not understand what it means, and if she could only make him sleep constantly, then she would feel safe. But she knows that until recently, she lived in constant fear. Air is the element of Khalid, and therefore the baby is a little surprised, because it seemed that the earth suits him better. He is serious, hot, and majestic, and like a scorching sandy desert heated by the midday sun. Simon says that he is very glad that she liked this place, and explains that he could not bring her here earlier due to various circumstances. Lacey says that, of course, there are no windows in the Khalid's cabin, but she felt good there too, and she believes that their ship is saturated with magic from top to bottom, and that its filling is probably even more magic than wood. The assistant says that she can rest here from time to time, because no one will see her, but she will be able to observe many. At this time, the main character understands that now she is not shaking from everything that she sees for the first time, and on the contrary, all this novelty gives her strength. Simon says that they are done for today, and Grandpa asks her to explain something because she understood everything, but she has neither magic nor teru, and then asks if she can be the bride of the great Khalid. The man says that she has it, and the girl asks in surprise what it is. He explains that she was born and lived on another continent, so she has not yet made herself known, but assures Her Highness that she definitely has power, and that he felt it, and then says that her element is water. Hearing this, the little girl was surprised, and thought that it was not that she did not want to believe it, but the gentleman explained that, until now, she would hardly have been able to feel it herself. The assistant believes that very soon she will begin to notice changes in herself, and the main thing is not to be afraid of anything, especially the unknown and the power itself, and her magic can awaken at any moment. Simon suggests that she not overdo it, because he believes that it will only harm her. He knows that, fortunately, the lady is emotionally stable and calm, and excessive use of magic puts a lot of strain on the human body. The man says that magic is also closely connected with her emotions, and positive emotions are a future blessing, and negative ones are a dangerous weapon. Lacey states that she will be careful, and then asks how she can feel the magic and create her own Taruk. Simon explains that everything happened by itself, and then remembers that in childhood, when he was still in the family circle, and at that time, the girl does not understand why his voice began to fade away towards the end of the sentence. The gentleman says that he thinks that it would be better for her to seek help from His Highness the Crown Prince, and she asks in surprise why she can't go to him. He screams and says that she definitely can't go to him, because he thinks that for this, she needs to get closer. The girl understands that this means something is connected with the family, and she doesn't know what to do then. And the man claims that, besides, she has an excellent relationship with His Highness. The main character reflects on the fact that she does not know her father, but she has many good memories of her mother, because she worked hard and was a good person, but she did not feel anything special even when she kissed her or picked her up. Lacey says that she was born in Weldon, and there has been no magic there for a long time. He says that it is nothing, because many residents used to live in their empire. Hearing this, the girl does not understand whether this means that he is questioning her origin, and then says that it turns out that she needs to turn to Khalid for help, because now he is the only person close to hers. The lady wonders if it's okay that they have diametrically opposed elements. The man explains that it is, but suddenly they heard some strange sounds and wondered what was going on. Sanahan screams and asks for forgiveness for frightening Her Highness, and therefore kneels and asks for forgiveness. Simon wonders what happened this time, and the main character asks if everything is okay with her. He says that he thinks that she should be dipped in seawater, or maybe it would be better to hang her upside down on the mast, and then says that she can also be put in an oak barrel for the night. The girl says that she agrees to everything and will not even resist, so she asks to choose the punishment that seems best to her. Hearing this, Lacey thought that she was so submissive, and at that time, she felt the magical object of option. The main character understands that it did not work before, due to the lack of magic, but with the crossing of the border, its magic came into effect again, because she was able to understand the lyrics of the song thanks to it. Lay reflects that she now understands everyone. 10 minutes ago, she asks the master if water and wind can be compatible. He replies that not quite, but she and His Highness are special, and at that time, they heard strange sounds. Sinahan asks where they are running off to cowards and then screaming. She says that she will smear their brains right on their stupid firebrands because she believes that they must follow the orders of the commander-in-chief clearly and without objection. Hearing this, the main character thought that this girl was sharp-tongued and also so lively, because she even felt a little sorry for these guys, but also had fun at the same time. Lei asks, her body is her Taru. The man claims that Her Highness asked her a question, and so she should be kind enough to answer. She replies that it is so. Hearing this, the girl thought that this is what Teru looks like before he has acquired his full form. Simon says that her punishment will be announced later, and Lei touches the girl's hair and says that it does not look like fiery wings, but he thinks that it is very beautiful. Sinahan looked at the lady and thought that she wanted to see her so much, but she was always at a great distance, and now she was so close. The lady says that she thought the flame would burn her, but it is very warm, and then asks, "What is the name of the person with such wonderful fiery wings?" and wonders if she is one of Khalid's personal knights. Hearing this, the girl thought that she did not possess any kind of charm magic, and she did not think that people from Weldon could be kind. The lady asks if she's okay, because she saw that the girl was crying. She answers that her name is Lanahan, and says that maybe her body sometimes fails her, but she would like to become her personal knight. Hearing this, His Highness's assistant does not understand how the Crown Prince is, and then says that Irene has no such thing as a knight, and then asks where she picked up such a thing, and also wonders if she is joking. The girl screams and claims that they must protect the lady as well as the Crown Prince. Hearing this, the man thought that he would go crazy, because he became curious that she had taken up her old ways again. Lanahan asks the lady to allow him to devote his life to her. Simon, surprised, asks if she has forgotten that she is the commander of the border service, while the girl pretends not to hear. The prince asks if there is any news from the guards. The knight reports that there have been no new reports, as they have searched everything, but have found nothing. The gentleman thinks that this is strange, because it is impossible to do something without leaving traces, and then one of two things. Either she really was alone, or her accomplice was smart. Sinahan asks to start looking for an accomplice right now. The prince says that it is interesting that they have never encountered a single mutant, because from the day Ganja died, they increased security from that same day. All the mutants seem to have disappeared. Khalid reports that he is glad that there have been no incidents so far, but this is no reason to relax, and they must not forget to pay special attention to patrolling until they get to Iran. No one on the ship should be harmed. The priestesses say that they used to hide her from everyone because she couldn't stand out and attract the attention of the crew, but now that the blessing ceremony was successful, she can finally officially live with the Crown Prince in his cabin, and therefore offers to dress her. Lacey thanks them for taking care of her outfit, and then says that lately she hasn't seen His Highness at all. The priestess says that His Highness is busy day and night, and they believe that this is not right, and that it is necessary to tell Mr. Simon about this because he probably has a reason for his eternal busyness. The lady screamingly claims that this is no reason to leave her alone, and at this time, the girl thought that it seemed better when she did not understand their words, and still does not understand why these priestesses serve her at all. Madam says she is happy to finally greet the lady properly, and then says her name is Sui, and she is a priestess of water. Huai says she is a priestess of fire, and Jai says she is a priestess of earth. Hearing this, the main character understands that they were not like ordinary maids. Sui reports that in Weldon, such as they call oracles, the lady says that even aristocrats can hardly meet them, and at this time does not understand how she could confuse them with maids. The priestess says that they do not worship a god, but the elements of water, fire, air, and earth, and each of them worships one element and carries a particle of it within themselves. So no matter how far and long the prince's journey is, he is always accompanied by priestesses, and they receive the blessing of poetry and contribute to the successful course of the journey. Hearing this, the little girl thought that this was true, because she didn't even have seasickness, and then asked where the air was. Sui replies that His Highness is the High Priest of Air, and one of their jobs is to look after the comfort of the High Priest. So right now, their primary duty is Her Highness's comfort. Lei says that these are his responsibilities, and she doesn't think she can influence it in any way. The girl understands what it means that he was present at the ceremony also as the High Priest, and he probably has a lot of worries and responsibilities. The priestesses suggest that the lady go to the dining room, and the main character wonders if it is necessary to dress like this every time since she understands that it is almost night. Hui thinks that these magical attributes will help her get used to them faster, and then asks if she is uncomfortable in them. The baby understands that she is quite comfortable, and then says that everything is fine, and at that time, she thought that she was just already worried about what else awaits her after all this, because she was especially embarrassed after understanding the function of the bracelets. Tiger asks the master why he is alone again, because he thinks he should have stayed with her. Khalid says he was going to tell her the same thing and wanted to ask him to stay with her. Zephyr claims that she is not like everyone else because of her water powers. He constantly falls asleep and therefore asks to do something about it because he believes that he should help her awaken her powers and teach her to control them. The gentleman says that it's enough to complain and calls him Grandpa, and the cat screams and tells him not to call him that. Khalid thinks that he has already done a lot, but the tiger claims that this is not enough and that it is necessary to end this here before they reach the Empire. Zephyr asks if they will all be safer once her powers awaken. The master tells him to stop grumbling, since he is already trying his best, and then pets the cat. Suddenly, the prince saw the monster, and then used his weapon and finished off the mutant. The knight fearfully asks His Highness if he is okay, as he understands that he is already exhausted, and asks if they should call the advisor and let them tell him about the mutant. Khalid says that he is finished, and it is better to check the perimeter. The guard says that he got so close, and they did not even notice him, and the master orders to strengthen security and everyone to be on the alert. Zephyr says that they are approaching the Empire, and that is why the mutants are leaking out, and the prince says that this is not usually the case, and therefore asks if he will agree with him. Tiger knows that he usually doesn't let them get that close to him, and then asks if the gentleman is tired. He replies that his thoughts have been occupied with other things lately. Zephyr offers to listen to what he has to say, and then says that if he helps her develop her strength, she can become her support in future battles. Khalid claims that this will not happen because he did not bring her so that she would share his burden with him. At this time, the main character became interested in how much time had already passed and why he was making her wait for so long, and assumed that he probably caught all these fish himself. The girl thinks that she probably missed him because they hadn't seen each other for several days. Suddenly, Anahan entered the room and asked for forgiveness if he had disturbed her, and then told Her Highness that she was always alone there, and that was why he had come and was embarrassed. The man says that frequent interaction with different people can help her awaken magical powers, and the lady invites him in because she was bored alone. The girl asks why he is standing there, and then offers to sit down. The man asks in surprise if he dares. Lacey says that the one who used to keep her company won't be coming today anyway. The knight says that today, Her Highness defeated the mutant, and at that time realized that he shouldn't have said that, and suggests that if His Highness finds out that he made her worry. The lady asks what he said, and Sanakan replies that nothing, and therefore suggests enjoying the food. Lacey looked at the guy and said that they really are very similar, although she understands that it is natural because that is why they are twins. He says that the Lanahan always cause a lot of trouble, and then asks why they are similar. The man asks Her Highness for forgiveness for her behavior, but she claims that there is no need for this because she even likes her impulsive nature. The girl says that they have the same appearance, but their characters are completely different. He reminds that the lady said that she likes Lanahan's character, and does this mean that his character? Leigh Viskrikivaya explains that she didn't mean it that way, and at that time she thought that they really do look alike, and then asks the guy if he is also a knight. Sanahan replies that he is not exactly a knight. Well, something like that. The main character wonders why the knight went on a long voyage with the prince of his country. The man explains that the thing is that he and Lanahan are not from a rich family, and as soon as they started working for His Highness, many began to treat them negatively. Leigh claims that they are both so talented. The knight says that it doesn't matter, and if he is from the lower classes, then he will be treated accordingly, and you are the only one who protected them and did not pay attention to their origins. This is His Highness the Crown Prince. Sanahan says, in order not to let down the Crown Prince and his faith in them, in order to repay him for all his kindness. He boarded this ship, and no matter what His Highness decides, no matter what journey he sets off on, he will always follow him. Hearing this, the girl understood why he was so strict with Lanahan, and then said that she was sure that the Crown Prince was not mistaken in them, and said that maybe he himself does not notice it, but she is sure that everyone else sees that he and Lanahan are superior to everyone else in fencing skills. Sanahan turns to Her Highness and says that perhaps he will disappoint her now, because in fact there is another reason why he ended up on this ship. Hearing this, the lady became interested in what he was talking about, and she wants to hear it. The man reports that for some time in the Empire of Iron, there was complete chaos. The Goths flourished slave trade, and at that time many children were sold into slavery on another continent. Lee wonders if this is about Weldon. He replies that this is how they lost their sister when they were kids. The main character hearing this was surprised and said that she could not even imagine that everything was so sad, and then asked to forgive her. Sanahan claims that everything is fine because now she knows everything, and for these two cities they searched the entire kingdom, but still did not find their sister, and therefore hope that by the will of fate they will meet one day. The princess looks at the man and asks if they have met before. He claims that he met her for the first time on this ship, and she says that she feels strange because he seems familiar to her. The lady explains that earlier she was a little uneasy about this, but now that she has crossed the border and feels safe, this feeling has intensified, and she is sure that they have already encountered each other somewhere. At this time, Simon enters the room and screams, asking what kind of inappropriate conversations they are having. The lady says that she is glad to see him, and then reminds him that they have not crossed paths at all lately. The gentleman asks what she just said to Sanakan, and also wonders if this is called flirting in her country. The girl explains that this is a joke, and then asks why he decided that at all. The knight thought that flirting probably eats. Simon asks if he is wrong, and then claims that she is forbidden to do so because she should not show romantic attention to anyone, except for the crown prince. Lei objects and claims that everything was not like that at all, and the knight says that perhaps he will go and thank for the food, which was very tasty. The lady asks to wait for him. The girl went after him, but he is so fast and understands that she is not his equal. The princess turns to Simon and claims that he got it all wrong, and therefore now suggests dealing with all the consequences. The gentleman explains that he has encountered similar phrases before, and therefore suggests that they take a break from this chatter. Tiger says that Her Highness should now first of all think about awakening her power, and therefore time cannot be wasted, because now she and Halit need to be together as much time as possible, and they need to get closer, and therefore suggests not to force him to say everything directly, because he is embarrassed. Lei asks the assistant if the Tiru can talk, and at that time, the girl thought that he was not just talking, and she had the feeling that he was talking to her in a didactic tone. Simon explains that it is not just the marshmallow that is special, and this is further proof of the prince's power. The tiger wonders why they are both so resistant to mating. Hearing this, the main character does not understand why he is talking to her so rudely. Zephyr says to awaken her magical powers, she must start mating. The girl screams and says that this tiger, and then wonders where he is sticking his face. Simon explains that the thing is that he doesn't understand Zephyr's speech very well, but he is still interested in what he said to her. Lei explains that he wants her to awaken her magic as soon as possible, and the gentleman asks for forgiveness, because apparently they all often told her about it. The girl looked at the marshmallow and thought about what he said and went on with a light heart. And then she says that lately everyone has been talking about how she needs to awaken her Simon priestess magic, and even this tiger. The princess wonders what will happen when her magic is strong enough. The man says that the natural connection will be strengthened. The main character says that in fact she has been feeling very insecure lately, and she hasn't seen Khalid for several days, and she realizes that she misses him. Lei reflects on the fact that at first she worries about him, and then suddenly her soul becomes very disgusted, and she does not understand whether this is possible because of a natural connection, because she suddenly begins to feel more comfortable around a person. Lanahan is informed that this often happens to him and to the twins in general. Simon asks the guy in surprise why he has such a bad habit. At this time, the main character thought that, on the other hand, for some reason she felt comfortable here from the very beginning, and she wondered if this was specifically connected with him. The gentleman explains that the magical power of twins is very compatible, so it seems that they complement each other perfectly. Lanahan says that sometimes he irritates or upsets many people, but not Sanakan. Or for example, he is very talkative with him, although he is usually quiet, and they are like halves of one whole, and they are comfortable with each other. The princess reflects on the fact that she has never met such a person, and she always felt a little uneasy with everyone, even with Madame the One, with whom she had been in close contact for a long time, because she was a rival next to whom she lost self-confidence, and therefore could not trust anyone at all. The girl became interested in whether it meant that she was comfortable with Khalid, and then wondered if this didn't cause inconvenience, since it turns out that because of this natural connection, he cannot be objective. The knight says that in any case, developing your magic cannot be a bad decision, and then says that Sanakan has been a model student since childhood, but it is better not to mention his skills as a magician and simply say that he always had to rely on Sanakan. Lanahan reports that even now, although her teru is still not formed, it is much better than what was before, and therefore believes that it is better to start as soon as possible. Simon thought that he should remain neutral, because he is their Cupid, and then asks her if her natural connection only gets stronger in bed, because he believes that the most important thing is the manifestation of sincere feelings. The princess says that she still needs to make every effort to curb her magic, and to do this, she needs to start by controlling her thoughts, and therefore asks to convey to the crown prince that she needs his help and support. Lei understands that they have an agreement and believes that feelings should not be mixed with work. Sanahan Viskarvaya says that he will also start practicing more to become a worthy knight for her. The lady thinks that he is already a worthy knight, and she always relies on him. The knight claims that no matter what anyone says, he will always be on her side, and at that time, he thought that she is very loyal and gentle. Halit turns to the girl and says that she was so good at charming his people. The man asks His Highness if he has come, and the prince wonders if he hasn't already promised to give his life for her. The woman explains that it's just that the two of them are now as one, so she almost didn't lie to them. His Majesty thinks that it's not worth gossiping about the prince in his presence, and then asks if she doesn't think it's worth leaving. At this time, the main character wondered if the Halit had sent them so that she would not be lonely. The men leave, and she says that they are left alone. The prince explains that this room was originally intended for just the two of them, and the lady reports that lately it felt as if she had it for her sole use. His Majesty explains that he sent Simon to her, and then the twins, and asked the priestesses to be more attentive to her, and then asks if that wasn't enough for her. The girl claims that they are quite enough, and then thanks him. And at that time, she thought that she does not understand why he is so slow-witted. The man tells her not to worry, because he will not disturb her rest for long, because soon he will have to leave again. Hearing this, the little girl was surprised. The princess says that she understands that he is busy with important matters, but even the priestesses are worried, because they think that they have become very distant from each other. Halit asks if the distance between them bothers her too. She replies that of course, because that is part of their agreement. Then she asks what will happen to Lanahan now. He says that for now, she should consider herself her knight. His Majesty says that she will have an escort in Irina, but not her, and this is not discussed. The lady says that she is sorry because she is also talented. Lei explains that in her country, there are practically no female knights, and most women simply do not own weapons. Because of this, they sometimes have a hard time, and she also respects her, and she thinks her teru will be strong. The lady asks if he knows the legend of the phoenix. Born in fire and embraced by it, this bird rises again and again from the ashes. The girl says that she thought that Lanahan Teru would look like a phoenix, but what she has now is very reminiscent of phoenix wings, and then asks the guy why he looks at her like that. The prince says that this is an interesting point of view, because usually everyone considers her weak, because she has poor control over her magic. Lei reminds that he said that she is a commander, and then asks if a weak person can become one. He answers that, of course, not because she is physically strong, but the first impression of her is not the most flattering. Hearing this, the main character says that she did not take it seriously, and he says that they will look at it because she was special since childhood. The little girl asks in surprise why he makes such conclusions. He explains that he simply assumed, and then gets up, and she asks if he is leaving. Khalid says that he has to go, and then says that she has such a displeased expression on her face right now, and that's why he simply has to touch it, and then wishes her kind words and kisses her. When the girl was left alone, she thought that she wanted to ask him to help her with awakening magic, but as soon as he touched her, she lost the gift of speech. Lacey ponders whether she can ask Simon or Lanahan for help in awakening magic. The priestesses suggest turning to the crown prince with this request, as they understand that she should not get too close to these two. Sway says that she has an idea, and then asks if she should try to increase its quantity, because this method is often used in Surabar when training children. The priestess explains that when a child interacts with the magic of different people, it not only strengthens the Terra, but also helps to better control their magic. Jan reports that Lanahan used this method, but believes that if she finds out that she was put on the same level as children, she will definitely be angry. The main character wonders if this will cause trouble for anyone. Lacey thanks the prince for showing her such a beautiful view. He explains that he thought it would be nice to get some fresh air before arriving. The little girl wonders if they will interfere with anyone. His Majesty informs that this entire ship is largely controlled by magic, so nothing can interfere with the voyage, and he keeps a close eye on everyone so no one shirks their work. The princess asks if he took her with him to be together. He asks in surprise if she wanted to be alone. The girl objects and explains that she thought he was very busy, and the man explains that it's not about managing the ship, and besides, she's not against it, and that's the main thing. The main character asks if he spent all his time here. He answers that it is and will remain until arrival in this place. She asks why, because he said that magic will protect the ship. Halit says that they are approaching the Empire, and therefore they need to tell her something. At this time, the marshmallow comes to them and looks angrily at the master. The prince strokes the tiger and explains that the time has come and she needs to be told. The people cry out in surprise that the gorge is already visible and that their homeland is finally very close. His Majesty says that beyond this gorge is the Empire of Irene, and then asks if she is ready. The Golden State, surrounded by deserts of Irene, is the place where the sun rises and shines brightly in this part of the world, as if it were another world. Suddenly there was a lot of fire, and the gentleman says that this is too much for a greeting, and the girl says smiling that she survived. The prince asks if she is okay, and if she is not hurt anywhere. The little girl claims that she is fine thanks to His Majesty. Suddenly, a loud roar is heard on the deck, and a man appears who addresses Halit, and says that he was sure that he had already gone to another world, because he had been gone for a long time. The main character realized that this prince was a caliph, and she became interested in where he came from. Halit asks if he is communicating with his spirit now. The prince claims that it is unlikely, because a dead person cannot look so irritated, and then asks what he expected, because he has not sent a single message in these 2 years. His Majesty says he will say it only once, and then tells him not to forget whose ship he is on. The man claims that it was already rude, and therefore suggests that he calm down and calls the baby a protector. The caliph looked at the girl and said that now he understands the reason for his long absence, and then asks where this beauty is from. The prince claims that he himself knows where he was. The man turns to the girl and asks for forgiveness if he was rude, and then asks if he can find out her name, and also wonders if she is really from the other side. The princess says that this is true, and her name is Nalasi, and it is an honor for her to meet the Scarlet Wings immediately upon arrival in Irani. The caliph smiled and said that he was amazed at her knowledge, and since that was the case, he allowed her to call him Caliph, and as a warrior, he would be happy to serve the sweet girls. Caliph Astas of Kajak, known as the Red Wings, is the portly brother of Khalit. He reports that if he had been told in advance, he would have given them a grand reception. The prince believes that even if he had sent a feasible person in advance, he does not think he would have done anything. After all, he has never had any warm receptions in his entire life, and does not understand why he would now. Hearing this, the man claims that he immediately put him in a bad light, and if he knew that he would not be alone, he would have taken Shakira with him. Khalid asks if his wife is okay. He replies that she is completely okay, but she prefers to stay at home for now, since the birth was only recently. The prince reminds that before sailing, he heard the same thing. The caliph claims that it was 2 years ago, and his children are all handsome and all like their father, and this time he wanted a daughter to be like Shakira herself. But alas, at this time, the main character thought that this beautiful couple had 5 children, and now it means that they already have 6. She remembered that the assistant told her that the Prince Caliph is Khalit's cousin, and he owns lands to the east of Iran, including the Khazad Gorge. The lady asks in surprise why the Kajak warriors obey him, and wonders if he is also a prince. Simon explains that in Irene, all descendants of the imperial family are called princes and princesses. Sureb, what is to the west of Iran, belongs to Prince Halit, and this is the western border of Iran, Kajak of the possession of Prince Caliph is the eastern border of Iran, because of the entire eastern border of Iran is responsible to Prince Caliph. The southern and northern borders are guarded by the empire's troops. The crown prince is the most powerful warrior in the imperial family, which is why he got the most neglected territories here. Suribor city fortress, considered the most dangerous territory, began to flourish, thanks to the work of His Highness. The man says that later, he will explain to her the reason why this land is considered dangerous. The caliph asks if it is customary for them to shake hands, and then says that it is a great honor for him to meet her. Lacey understands that the Prince Caliph is still an important person in the empire and wonders if this is normal, but she thinks that she cannot ignore this gesture and then touches his hand. Suddenly, the girl felt pain and she does not understand what happened, but at this time, the prince comes to her and heals her hand with the help of magic. When Lanahan saw this, he screamed and asked the lady if she was okay, and the prince told Simon to examine her. The assistant takes the lady by the hand and asks for forgiveness, then explains that it will only take a second. The main character saw that the prince was very angry, and then he went to his cousin, and she called him. The girl thought that he always responded when she called him. The caliph smiled and said that you wouldn't believe it right away. Simon claimed that he had been warned and didn't understand why it was necessary to do something like that. The gentleman apologized for scaring him, but he himself was surprised, and he himself knew that few could resist his magic. Lacey reflects on the fact that her body caught fire because of the magic that she still cannot feel. Zephyr decided to take revenge on the master and tore his cloak, but he asks for forgiveness and claims that he is guilty and that he just did it out of curiosity and suggests that he calm down already. The girl understands that she can't let things slide because the rude guy is still stubborn, and then she turns to the military leader and asks if he doesn't mind if they finish greeting them at this point and suggests that they shake hands anyway. When Simon heard this, he said that Prince Caliph's magic is very strong and aggressive, and of course it's good that he's trying to be polite, but there's no need to risk yourself. The caliph tells his assistant that he hears everything, and the prince touches the girl and says that there is no need to hurry. The young lady claims that everything will be fine, and at that time, she thought that she was just wondering what kind of person he is, because she wants to feel his magic. Lei knows that he greeted them so warmly that it would be awkward to leave everything like this, and then asks the prince if he agrees. Halit is wondering if he can refuse her, and the girl offers to shake hands, but suddenly, when he touches his hands, she doesn't understand what it is, and it's as if she's standing in the middle of a fire, but the flames don't burn her. The princess thought that it seemed to her that it should hurt, but there was no pain, and she thought that no matter what she had to endure. Halit suddenly grabbed the lady, and she asked in surprise why he did this, and at that time she saw Terra Khalifa. Because of him, he got the nickname Red Wings. The gentleman smiled, and at that time, Lei thought that he would pull the sword out of its sheath, and he would laugh. Halit looked at the baby and said that she really is special. The gentleman with the beard suggests his Terra to calm down, because everything is fine, and then turns to the lady and says that he could have bitten her. The caliph claims that she is a very brave girl, and then asks if she really came to them from that side, and understands that the world is truly surprised. Simon is surprised to hear that she was able to cope with the prince's magic, and he knows that no one has ever managed to do this before. The woman says that she heard that the power of Prince Khalifa corresponds to the color purple, and then the servants began to say something among themselves. Lacey doesn't understand what the conversation is about, and thinks that maybe she did something wrong because they are talking. Halit hugs the girl, and then kisses her, and says that he can't stand it anymore. She suggests that he answer her first. The girl doesn't understand why she has a feeling down there again, and she doesn't know how to think when this is happening down there. The caliph says in surprise that he hasn't felt anything like this for a long time, and asks what kind of magic she has, because he thinks that the unique color of her eyes and the energy of water were promising, but he didn't think that she was so strong and wasn't even afraid of his Teruhi. The main character says that Halit was nearby, and that's why it happened, but he objects and says that it's not about that, but rather that she simply instinctively understands that she is stronger than him. The gentleman says that he is interested, and it seems that, despite the element, her power is offensive. Halit says that his brother was even scared when he heard this. The man explains that he was just a little nervous. The prince says that Teru wouldn't have appeared because of crazy nerves. At that time, the girl thought about what it means that Teru appeared, because the owner's life was in danger, and she wondered if she really attacked him. The caliph says that it is time for him to go, and if he returns late, Shakira will be angry and then greets his brother and says that welcome home, and therefore he will have to work immediately upon arrival in Surabray. The master agrees with him and tells his brother to protect his lands. He says that he doesn't have to worry about it, and if there are problems, let him know. Finally, they reached land, and the priestess said with delight that they were home, and it turned out that a lot of time had passed, a golden country surrounded by deserts, and when the main character heard about Iran, only gloss and luxury appeared before her eyes. But for some reason, this view suddenly seemed familiar to her. The young lady became curious why he suddenly kissed her and embarrassed her. And at that time, she remembered the words of the assistant that the relationship will not take place only on physical intimacy because feelings are also important. The girl became interested in whether her feelings for him could be called sincere because his bright smile, sudden kisses, honesty, and fleeting touches, and also that look when he calls her, and understands that this is all the reason for his rapid heartbeat. Halit asks if she likes it here, and the assistant turns to the gentleman and offers them to eat in the cabin because he has to report something. The man explains that, until today, it was just a proposal, but it seems that Her Highness's magic has already begun to gain strength. Having heard this, Lacey was surprised and said that first, it was necessary to become stronger, then form the Tiru, and then the abilities could be developed, because that was the order according to him, but she did not feel anything. Simon believes that she is apparently an exception, and His Highness the Caliph deliberately allowed their forces to clash, and in this way, he wanted to show them his superiority. The assistant informs that his friendliness means nothing and suggests remembering that in Iran you can make a person kneel without using a single threat. Hearing this, the girl was surprised, because she didn't even imagine that he would make her kneel. The prince claims that he is rude, and she even shook his hand. Simon thinks there are two options, either give up or accept the challenge. The lady realized she accepted the challenge, but thinks it was unintentional. The man explains that a person in their right mind would have given in and avoided direct contact with Prince Caliph. But in her case, the decision was made by her power. The princess asks if she has already had a Teru, although she understands that she did not notice the appearance of some animal. Simon says that if we assume that they have an invisible Teru, then he is already coping with his duties with flying colors. And then he says that his Teru is merciful to those who are kind to his master. And when faced with the master's enemy, the Teru will attack him or try to protect the master. The gentleman explains that Teru's behavior is understandable on an intuitive level, and now it is difficult for her, but soon she will begin to understand the meaning of Teru's actions. And then he says that it is not that she did not understand what she was doing, and most likely her actions were dictated by intuition. Khalid thinks that since she is already subconsciously mature for this, it will be easier to develop the power further, and then asks what she felt where he tried to suppress her. The lady replies that she didn't even realize that he was trying to do this, because it seemed to her that she was at the position of the mountain where a volcanic eruption was about to occur. The girl reports that at first she was confused, but then she realized that it was just a vision and calmed down. Simon screams and says that his feelings were transmitted to her, and believes that this is not just a vision, but that he saw and felt her Terra. And apparently, he really has already appeared to her because he shared his feelings with her. The man asks if she felt it all vividly, and therefore believes that the revelation of his abilities is not far off. And if everything is so, the entire scientific world will turn upside down. And then he says that, as soon as they get to Doma, they will try to test her power again. Lacey keeps telling the gentleman that she is not even surprised by his impulsiveness, and then asks if he thinks so too. The prince says that he is surprised that his woman is even more amazing than he thought, and therefore he is enchanted by her even more. The little girl says that no one can see them now, and then asks what the compliment is for. The lady at this time thought that if they were in public, his game would be justified. He asks if it is possible, and then says that he is enchanted by her and is not even afraid of this word in love. and asks if they will go out because he thinks that she will like the port of Kajak. Lei says that she thought that they had already arrived at their destination, and he explains that they have only docked temporarily and will soon be heading to Enon, and then says that it is beautiful here, but it is a pity that they will not be there for long, and offers to give her something as a keepsake. The prince tells her to choose whatever she wants. The girl says in surprise that they even sell gold jewelry right on the shelves, and she wonders if gold here is like the most ordinary goods. The guy suggests that she speak in a whisper because he thinks that they shouldn't attract too much attention. Halit says that he is glad that no one has revealed them yet, and therefore suggests enjoying this moment of freedom, and then asks how she likes the decoration because he thinks that it suits her, although he understands that everything suits her, and therefore suggests choosing it herself. The main character approached the girl and asked if she did it herself. The prince thought that neither the room full of sapphires nor the room full of gold interested her, but the lady said that she chose this hairpin and then put it on her hair and asked if he liked it. His Majesty understands that at the sight of this little hairpin, her eyes lit up, and he has no idea how to behave now, and then asks if she likes it and offers to take the blue one. Halit says that she can take both because she understands that it is difficult to understand what is hidden in the shadow that has enveloped her, but soon she will only glow and nothing will remain from this shadow. The guy says that he will go and look around for now, but the girl objects and says that she is with him and asks why he is leaving so quickly. She thinks that everything was fine, but she does not understand why this is so. The prince quietly says that they have been exposed, and when he gives the signal, they must run away. He suggests not to listen and not to turn around, and if they attract attention, no one will chase them, and if they are discovered, then today they will not be able to sail from here. At this time, Lanoan, crying out, turns to Prince Halit and calls his name, and then asks to be allowed to accompany His Highness. Hearing this, the locals are surprised to say that their hero's Prince Halit has returned, and they understand that they should greet him, but they became interested in who is next to him. The prince says that the time has come, and then grabs the girl by the hand, and they run away. And since they don't need any extra greetings, when Lei returned, she decided to take a bath, and Sui asked if she enjoyed the walk. She answered that the port seemed very lively, and even a little magical. But to be honest, it turns out that she missed the land. The princess says that even her mood has improved after a short walk. Jan asks what color clothes she would like to wear today, and how she should style her hair. The lady says that today she trusts her image to them. Sui then offers to choose the jewelry herself. The main character looks at the jewelry in surprise and says that they are very beautiful, but it's a pity that they do not carry magic. The priestess says that this color suits her and suggests simply engraving the runes on the stones. Runes are magical symbols. Objects with them become magical. They are applied not only to jewelry, clothes, and dishes, but also on the ship. Sui is informed that their powers will not be enough to imbue the item with strong magic, and moreover, they can simply ruin the precious amethyst. Lei asks if this means they can make magic items too. Jan replies that priests can put runes on jewelry, but their power alone won't be enough. The lady asks why, and she answers that they only recently became full-fledged priestesses. Jan explains that, besides, they haven't practiced for a long time, because they spent 2 whole years on the other side. And usually, only the prince applies runes to items with precious stones. Sui explains that amethyst is considered a precious stone, so it cannot be damaged, and imbuing the object with weak magic is a dubious idea. Hearing this, the main character thought that they were so worried about such trifles, and she was still satisfied with just wearing the necklace as it was. The princess asks whose jewels these are. Jan replies that of course they are hers, as is everything else on this ship. The girl asks if that means she can do with them as she pleases. They reply that of course she can. Lacey says that since that's the case, she suggests that they practice putting runes on them together, because she also wants to try. The young lady realizes that the dress is a little short in the front, and at that moment, the prince enters the room, and she says that she was waiting for him to ask her something. The prince grabs the girl's hand, and at that time, she heard Lanahan's voice saying that she was very sorry. The lady asks, "What is it?" And isn't that Lanahan's voice? His Highness replies that this is so, and she began to question him about what happened in the port. The girl says that she understands because she tortured him, and then asks why he ran away, because he thinks that he would have explained, and that's it. Halit says that it is true, and then says that he just wanted to support her hand again. He hugs her around the waist and tells her not to run away, because she herself said that they no longer need to run away. Lei claims that she is not running away, because they are alone here and have no one to hide from. He wonders if she can then respond to his confession. But at this time, the girl remains silent, and he says that he is ready to wait if she needs a little more time. The main character thought about the true feeling of love, which people make up legends about, and the girl doesn't know if it's her, but his self-confidence, thick eyebrows, a look that makes the imagination run wild, those strong shoulders and dark skin, the warmth of his body, and long fingers with protruding veins. Halit says that he doesn't know what's going on in her soul, but he knows one thing for sure, and the little girl says that she likes him too, and she's finally made up her mind. The man asks if this is a forced answer. She explains that lately, various thoughts have been bothering her, and everything in her head is mixed up. But now she is sure of her feelings, and that she likes him. The prince thanks her, and then says that this is enough, and then kisses her. The girl asks if he will tell her what exactly attracted him to her. He replies that if he starts listing all the reasons, she will have to do the same, and then asks if she is ready to hear the answer. Lee objects and asks if he really thinks she's going to tell him all her secrets, and also wonders why he took his clothes off. He replies that her words made him feel hot, and then asks if she wants them to have a drink. At this time, the main character does not understand where their relationship will lead. He asks if she likes warm wine, and then kisses her on the lips and suggests starting. The girl asks in surprise what to start with. The prince replies that they will share secrets, and they will take turns talking about what they like about each other. The lady replies that she likes his voice, and he asks what exactly she likes about it. The little girl replies that it is difficult to explain, and he suggests that she think about it because he wants to know everything about her feelings. Khalid kisses a girl, and she tells him to stop because it tickles her, and he suggests that they get down to business and admit at least to themselves that what is happening between them now is extremely rare, and he feels like he is going crazy from thinking about her, and that is why he wants this and asks if she understands. Lei asks if she doesn't want to stop it. The prince replies of course, and then asks if he should stop it. The little girl objects and tells him not to stop and do whatever he wants. At this time, the main character thought that she liked absolutely everything about him, and when he began to caress her, the world faded. She thought that he was right, because she confessed, and now there was no point in worrying about it. The girl suggests doing it, but not here, and he replies that they can't go to the bedroom, and no one will bother them here. The little girl says that when he speaks in such a voice, it is simply impossible to refuse him, and he asks if he heard right, and if it was consent. Lacey reflects on how the debts that befell her as a child after her mother's departure were a much greater misfortune than her mother's departure itself. The girl did not want much. It would be enough if someone helped her pay them off. One day, a woman came up to the little girl and asked where she was running from the moneylenders and wondered if she had decided to follow her mother. The lady asks if she wants to go with her, and the girl asks in surprise who she is. The woman offers to choose whether she will follow her mother or her. Lei realizes that she had no reason to live, but most of all, she was afraid of dying, and then she gave the woman her hand and agreed to go with her. In the morning when the girl woke up, she thought that she had another strange dream, and did not understand why, after a night with him, there followed a memory of the past. Suddenly, the main character remembered that yesterday she was with him right on the table, and does not understand how this is possible. She does not know how she cannot burn with shame. She knows that she was very good but still on the table. Zephyr says that this is a good job, because last night she tried very hard hearing this. Lei screaming asks how long he has been here. The priestesses ask Her Highness if she is awake, and then apologize for not wanting to catch her off guard. The princess wonders what is going on here, and suggests telling her. Sui asks for forgiveness, because she thinks that they have ruined everything, because they tried to engrave this precious amethyst, and now they are ashamed, and it cannot be returned to its original appearance. The lady understood what was going on, and then said that he didn't do anything. Of course, she wouldn't be angry since she herself had allowed them, and therefore she wasn't sorry at all, since this was the first magical item that they had tried to make together, and she would cherish it. The priestesses report that they do not know anyone with such a big heart and will try even harder in the future. At this time, the main character thought that, because of her, they could have problems, and she needed to consult with Simon about this because she didn't want them to get into trouble because of her. The girl thinks about whether she should ask if there are other stones on which she can practice. The prince claims that it is impossible, and Lei wonders why he refused her so abruptly. And at that time, she thought that she only asked where Simon was. Halit replies that he doesn't know what she's up to, but he won't change their agreement, especially the last point. The little girl says that she would like to add one more point to their conversation, and then says, no sex unless necessary. Lei asks if he is talking about the point with sex, and the man claims that he is talking about it. And at this time, the girl is thinking about the fact that he thinks that she will forbid him to touch her. The girl asks what he is so worried about, and the prince, screaming, reminds him that, by the way, yesterday everything was consensual, which means they both felt the need for it. The main character asks, what if they remove it? The guy was surprised to hear this, and she suggests removing this point altogether because she thinks it was rather selfish of her. Lacey says that she decided to add him at the last minute, and didn't even take his opinion into account, and therefore suggests simply removing him because she didn't like him anyway. The princess wonders if this can be done, because she believes that they cannot change a contract after signing it, but she assumes that suddenly this is permissible there. The caliph turns to Nell and tells her that he is warning her immediately, and if she changes her mind later and wants to return everything to how it was, it will be too late. She wonders whether she should bring their agreement to her already. The prince suggests doing it later, and standing like this for a little while longer. 25 days have passed since the ship sailed, and albeit little by little, their relationship has begun to change. The gentleman says that as soon as they arrive in Enian, he will have to take care of one little matter. Simon asks who he is talking about, and whether it is somehow connected with Her Highness's abilities. Halit says that he needs to find out about the place where Nell lived, before he asks if the gentleman wants to find out about that madam. The prince understands that she has certainly matured a lot, but the fact that she does not remember him at all confused him, and therefore does not think that she simply forgot about him over time, and assumes that she lost her memory. Halit says that since they are getting rid of the useless points of the contract, he would like to ask her a few useless questions, and then asks if she really doesn't remember the day of their first meeting, or if she is pretending not to remember. The girl claims that she remembers their quarrel at the ball very well, if he is about it. The gentleman asks to forgive him for that time, because he was looking for her for so long that their meeting seemed like a miracle to him. The prince thought that when he saw her smiling at that guy, he couldn't think of anything better, and only insulted her. The little girl explains that she didn't know that everything would turn out like this, and therefore thinks that there is no need to apologize, because she simply took it as part of her job. Lei wonders why he was looking for her, and did he really find out that she was a good actress? Hearing this, the guy was surprised, and she explains that, although Veronica would have become a villain according to the plan, no one knew it then. The main character says that all his sudden aggression was something new for her, and she means that she usually finds an approach to people right away, but she immediately had a fight with him, and it's funny. The gentleman asks if that's true, and she claims that, of course, she was very proud of herself because he was hurt. Halit says that long before all this, when she was not yet Veronica, there was a heavy rain on the bridge, and that was when their first meeting took place. The girl was surprised when she heard this. Simon asks in surprise if after the magical restrictions were lifted, she shouldn't have remembered everything. The master says she should have, but she didn't remember. The assistant says that therefore everything needs to be thoroughly investigated, because if Her Highness's memory does not return, then he became interested in what will happen to their relationship in 2 years. Suddenly, the prince warns Simon about the danger, because a guest has come to them. The woman asks if he greets all the guests half naked, and he says, "Nefer," so she can move away. The lady first suggests explaining. The main character reports that she heard a rumble on the deck and went out. And at that time, she saw a strange scene, that the prince was lying on the floor, and the woman was on top of him. The girl wonders what they are doing here, and then asks who can explain to her what is going on here. Nefer looked at the lady and asked who she was. The prince explained that she was the princess's wife, and then asked if she would get off him. Hearing this, the woman was surprised and asked whose wife she was, and the gentleman replied that it was obvious that it was his. The lady wondered when he managed to get married. Halit says that he is getting married soon, and therefore suggests getting off him. Nefer screams and says that he now understands why they haven't heard anything about him for a long time, and she can't believe it, and then reminds him that he said it was for a maximum of 3 months. The woman claims that this is how it works, and he left and there was no sign of him for 2 whole years. He asks her to calm down, and she screams and asks if he asks her to calm down, and thinks that he has no conscience at all. Nefer asks if he has ever thought about her brother, who is stuck in remote areas because of him, and then he angrily suggests saying at least something, and at that moment she pulls out a knife. When the main character saw this, she decided to stop her, and then grabbed her hand, but suddenly the girl wounded her. Lacey says it's a shame that their first meeting is going like this, and then asks if it's possible to resolve the matter peacefully. Simon asks Her Highness if she is okay, and she explains that it is just a small scratch. The prince asks if she is sure, and also if there are any more wounds, and at that time he thinks that if he had known that this would happen, then of course he would not have allowed it. Sui says that if she was a little more experienced, she would be able to heal her wounds. The little girl claims that everything is fine, and she is fine, and at that time she thought that she was sure that she managed to dodge her attack, because she understands that she owns some kind of magical object. Sui suggests that the lady steam her feet, because it will calm her nerves, and of course the tea she prepared will help her relax. At this time, the girl thought that, in her opinion, they all need to relax. Simon comes into the room and says that it looks like she wants to apologize for what happened. Nefer turns to Her Majesty and asks to forgive her recklessness that brought her trouble, because she dared to wound the one who will one day become empress and must be punished. The girl kneels down and says that she is very sorry, and if her mistress takes pity on her, she can take her lands. Lei screams together that this is not necessary and believes that she is also to blame for what happened, and then asks the prince if he can leave them for a minute. The main character understands that she has to apologize in front of everyone, and she is sure that it is humiliating for her. Halit asks what if she does something again, and the little girl answers that she doubts and suggests leaving them anyway. The princess turns to the woman and asks her to stand up, and then asks if she thinks this is too much, and then explains that it all happened because she did not immediately understand how strong she is, and asks for forgiveness for attacking her princess Nefer like that. Hearing this, the woman asked in surprise how she knew her name. The young lady thought that the imperial family tree was so huge that she could hardly remember her name. The girl remembers that Simon said that Princess Nefer is an important member of the imperial family because she is Prince Khalid's cousin on his mother's side and a dark warrior who protects Sennar, and these are the borderlands in the southern part of Irina. Lei says that of course she knows the man who was entrusted to guard the southern part of the empire. The woman claims that she has nothing special, and she still has a lot to learn. The princess apologizes again for leaving such a terrible first impression, and then asks if she thinks she can keep this a secret from the rest of the imperial family. Nefer asks if she wants to say that she is not going to make a scandal about it. The lady says that she would also prefer that she keep it a secret, because she thinks it is so indecent. The guest reflects on the fact that she thought that since she is the wife of her selfish cousin, she is no different from him, but she believes that she is completely different because she has a mysterious and bewitching charm, and her outfit matches the color of her violet eyes so perfectly. Nefer believes that what is important is that she gives off an aura of goodwill, and the closer you are to her, the stronger it is felt. The prince asks why they are taking so long, and the blonde asks why she agreed to marry him and whether she is being held against her will. She thinks they are blackmailing her, but also suggests that maybe they kidnapped her. The woman asks her to blink slowly twice if she is here against her will, and then says that she will not argue because she knows that her cousin has his faults. But the fact that he is a good leader does not mean that he will be a good husband. Halit screams and tells her to get off his ship right now. The lady asks if she heard, and then claims that he is heartless. The prince thinks that she broke into someone else's ship and caused chaos there. Lei says that she is right, because it is impossible to predict how their marriage will turn out. But she is sure of one thing, that the prince will do everything so that she does not regret her choice, because in the end she loves him. The main character does not understand whether she overdid it and whether she spoke convincingly. The gentleman says that he loves her too. The girl thought that, although she was afraid that her true feelings would come to light, and that one day Khalid would understand everything, some part of her wanted this to happen, and if only she could secretly convey her feelings to him. Nefer does not understand what he did to deserve her, and thinks that maybe in a past life he saved the world. The assistant turns to Her Highness and says that it looks like they need to leave, and therefore suggests leavings. The woman turns to the man and says that she understands that he brought her into this room because he wants to say something, and asks if this is true. Simon says he thought he should assign her a priestess, but not until they get to Enon. The princess asks what nonsense and wonders why a powerful priestess would accompany a weak warrior, since even she understands that it is not necessary. Nefer says that she will not mind if he is Simon with the priest. The master thinks that a woman would suit her better, and she is not a weak warrior. She says that it was a joke, and therefore suggests telling the twins to come to her later, because she missed them. Simon says he is sure Sana and Lana will be happy to hear this. The woman says that she missed him most of all, and is glad to be here because she saw him after so many years. The assistant turns to Her Highness and informs her that he is also glad to see her in full health. Hearing this, the lady does not understand what a fool he is, since he pretends not to notice her hints. The man asks what's wrong, and Nefer replies that everything is fine, and she is just glad that he is here, and then says that about 3 weeks ago, she received news from her brother in Sarajevo, and thinks that it seems that something strange has been happening at the border lately. Simon asks what exactly, and she replies that the mutants have started to attack less often, and he says that it is like the calm before the storm. Nefer says that people who don't understand the situation claim that this is a sign that the curse is weakening, because exactly 3 weeks have passed since the news was received. The assistant realized that they had crossed the border around this time, and thought that their numbers had dropped after the dragon had appeared, and he hoped that it was just a coincidence. The woman wondered why it had taken them so long to return. The prince says that he sees one thing and then another, and this is what happened, but besides, he is not obliged to explain anything to Nefers. The little girl thinks that he could have embellished the truth a little as they told their story back then. And for example, he could have told her that they fell in love with each other, but their love was not destined to happen, but they still fought for their relationship, and somehow, miraculously, everything worked out for them. Hallett says that he doesn't think that she would believe him, and if he told her that he had been looking for her for the last 2 years, she definitely wouldn't believe him, or would have understood everything incorrectly. The girl asks, what difference does it make what she thinks about her there? And then claims that, as he said so, it was. He says that he knows, but still prefers to keep quiet, and believes that his words can somehow limit her, because she loves freedom so much. The prince realizes that it is difficult for him to be honest with her, because he is afraid of her running away as soon as she finds out that of the two of them, only he is keeping the promise they made 10 years ago. A promise that she does not even remember. The gentleman thinks that waiting is easy, and he will wait until the end of days, until all her memories return. And as he waited for those 2 years, he spent in Weldon. After all, waiting is nothing compared to the joy that her existence brings him. Halit just wants her to be near him, and that's all he asks for. And then he turns to the girl and tells her not to worry about Nefer, because Simon will take care of everything, and besides, they have something to do. The young lady says she hasn't had her bath yet, and he kisses her and asks her to promise not to get hurt again. The little girl says she does, and then asks if they can move to the bed. The prince agrees, and then tells her that her word is law on this ship and takes her in his arms. He tells her that she is allowed to do everything except abandon him. The lady wonders why she should leave him, and thinks that they understand what reasons she might have for this, if she is in love with him. Halit suggests not to talk about his love in front of other people, and then kisses her passionately. The next morning, the main character thought that this could not be a coincidence, because she had strange dreams every time she spent the night with Halit. The girl thinks that this is all because of the coincidence of their horoscopes, but neither Simon nor Nefer ever talked about anything like that, and she thinks that maybe she should discuss this with Halit. The main character is thinking that maybe everyone knows that she doesn't know. The blonde asks the lady what she's thinking about and then says that she moved here and hopes that she doesn't mind. Nefer turns to Her Highness and asks her to hide her because they do not leave her alone, because they offered to comb her hair and then let her hair down. Lei thought that she really is a freedom-loving thing, and the woman asks what is bothering her. The lady asks if it is obvious that something is bothering her. Nefer finally asks if she regrets her decision to marry Khalid, and then says that if she wants, she will help break off the engagement. The main character asks Princess Nefer if she is happy about their marriage. She replies that she can't say that she doesn't like this idea of seeing her cousins smiling and flying in the clouds, and then says that it is so disgusting and asks who would want to see such a picture. The blonde asks if she knows that Iran is cursed, because some time ago mutants began to appear here out of nowhere, as if a curse from heaven had fallen on their land, and the lands of Khalite Cerebra turned out to be closest to the source of the curse. 10 years ago, when the entire empire was in danger, it was Khalid who saved them all. The girl reports that Simon told her about this, and thanks to his actions, he became the crown prince. Nefer says that thanks to Khalid's victory, their empire was able to resume business with the neighboring empire. But before that, Iran was completely isolated. Lei wonders if she is talking about the Grendon Empire, because it is ruled by a powerful emperor, and their army is merciless. The blonde says that since then, they have been looking for a way to lift the curse together, and believes that sooner or later, they will succeed. Khalid is their hero, and he was only 17 when he saved them, and he is their son, and therefore believes that the lady has nothing to worry about, because their marriage will be easy and happy. Nefer reports that in the end, their son chose her, and no one will dare to dispute his choice. The priestesses tell the princess that they have prepared everything necessary for engraving the runes. The lady apologizes and then asks if they came for her because she was late. The lady explains that she and the princess had such an interesting conversation that she completely forgot about the time, and then tells Nefer that she needs to go and ask that. When she has a free minute, let him come to her. Nefer asks where Halet found this beauty, because he believes that this girl is a pure diamond that radiates only rainbow color. Simon says that it's nice to finally have a rest, because he even managed to soak in the bath. And when he saw the prince, he asks in surprise what happened, because he scared him. The gentleman explains that he urgently needs to discuss something with him. The assistant asks in surprise how he can rest. He suggests continuing to do his own thing, but the main thing is to listen to him. The prince says that a water priestess visited him, and I showed him a chest that he must see. The gentleman asks in surprise if this is not a necklace for his future wife, since all three had runes engraved on them, and as he was told, they would become magical attributes. Sui says that she put the rune on the necklace that is in the middle, and the runes are so small that she could not even see them. And considering that she is a water priestess, she understands that these are healing runes. The priestess says that this was her intention, and if he looks closely at them, and then asks if this rune reminds him that it is engraved in the sanctuary. Hearing this, the prince was surprised, and asked if she wanted to say that she had engraved a rune that even the high priestess had difficulty doing. Sui says that she understands that her words seem ridiculous, but this is the only rune that Her Highness touched, and perhaps that is why she was able to engrave something that she could never do before, because she understands that it is very difficult for priests and priestesses to find a patron, and asks if this is true. The gentleman says that from this day on, he will always support the three of them, and in return, they will serve faithfully and truly, but not to him but to Nalasi. The prince says that they will not tell anyone about this, and does not allow the true meaning of this rune to be revealed to Her Highness, and hopes that they will explain the current situation to the other priestesses. Simon asks His Highness in surprise why he decided to tell him about these important events in the bathroom, and also wonders why he decided to keep it a secret from Her Highness, because just think she is able to influence the engraving of runes, and he has never heard of such a thing. And moreover, isn't the purification rune engraved on the staff in the sanctuary? Simon believes that she has the power to change Irina's fate, and says that she will immediately inform Her Highness about this. The prince turns to his assistant and claims that he does not need to think about it, then asks him not to say anything to His Highness, and asks if he should remind him of the fate of the previous bearer of such power, and how her last days went. Unlike healing magic, which heals wounds and restores energy, cleansing magic has the ability to undo destruction and pollution. This power affects the balance of power throughout the world. When Irene was on the verge of extinction, due to a dark curse that no one could remove, a heroine appeared who managed to save the empire. Without a moment's hesitation, she sacrificed herself to awaken the power of purifying magic. In the end, her actions cost her dearly. Simon turns to His Highness and claims that the situation is different now, and the Empress Remedis had to bear the burden of the entire empire on her shoulders alone. The man believes that if at least her husband could create magical objects, it would be much easier for her, and she would not have to use so much magic. And then he looked at the prince in surprise and asked if he knew all this time that Her Highness had the power of purification. Khalid reminds that he already told him that it would be better if he directed his actions in a different direction, and for example towards a woman who he seems to really like. The gentleman says that this is just advice, and in general he will not change his decision. Simon asks in surprise what she did, that he found out the truth, and then asks how he could hide it until today. His Highness asks the assistant whether he serves Her Majesty or the imperial family. Simon says that if he had at least said when she first began to show her abilities, but the prince thinks that there is no point in these questions because she does not remember. Khalid asks if she really doesn't remember him or is pretending, and the girl asks if he wants to say that he was there. He replies that he was. Lacey asks in surprise how he recognized her, and the guy asks how he could not recognize her because the sound of the rain, the noise of the river, her voice, and he has not forgotten anything from that day. The girl thinks it's amazing, but she's embarrassed that he remembers everything from that day, and she was dressed so terribly then. The next day, everyone was talking about this, that the mistress of the future son-in-law of the Duke of Luxel committed suicide, and that she then called herself Brianna. The prince explains that he was not talking about that, but about events long before. The lady asks if he is talking about the day she had to jump off the bridge to escape from the noble brute, and then says that it was 7 years ago. The gentleman asks how many times she has jumped off the bridge. The main character wonders how she can believe him if he refuses to tell the details, and judging by the fact that he has been waiting all these years to get the actress, she can only imagine what his plan is. The little girl thinks that he is no longer needed, and asks if this is true since they get along so well, but not trusting someone takes a lot more effort than he thinks. Simon says he understands why he asked him to find out about Fiora. The gentleman says she's not trying to deceive them, but he really doesn't remember, and thinks he must have gotten up on the wrong side of the bed today. Halit reflects on how it took him so long to get closer to her, but does not want anything to threaten their relationship. The assistant turns to His Highness and says that he understands everything, and if she still doesn't remember anything, then their relationship will go to hell in 2 years, and this whole operation is a huge disaster, but not for him since he came up with a brilliant idea. Simon, the son of an elder and a brilliant scientist, always brings everything to the end. He even wrote hundreds of works, but often gets into stupid situations. The assistant says that he must see with his own eyes the abilities of Her Highness. After all, at the moment he is making every effort to ensure that this couple lives happily ever after. Simon understands that when it comes to the princess, the prince is more stubborn than a donkey, and therefore believes that he simply has to help Her Highness regain her memories so that everything can finally work out for them. The assistant asks, what if they try to return her memories with earth magic? Halit says that too many people are watching her, and if she ends up in an awkward situation, rumors will spread. And the man says that he hasn't heard his brilliant idea yet, and then asks if the wedding ceremony is approaching. Sway says that it is a special day, so it is better to wear new things, and the main character objects, and says that these earrings are very beautiful, and let them stay, because she thinks that they are very comfortable and look good, and then suggests that it would be better to choose a bracelet and necklace for her. The girl remembered the men who told her to always follow their orders, and not to trust anyone, and always be on guard. She understands that when she gets off the ship, she will become a foreigner, and in this country, she can only trust herself. Sway tells her friend that she was wearing these earrings when they first met, and thinks that they are very dear to her, and it is good that she still has something native. The main character thought that she was worried, and the prince turned to her and said that he wanted to see her and wanted to touch her, but she objected and said that it was not necessary because the makeup would ruin it. The gentleman asks who made her so beautiful, and the lady explains that she will be appearing in this city for the first time, and so she wants to look perfect. Halit says that he is not okay because she has become even more beautiful, and he cannot really see her face and kiss her. Lacey saw the river and asked if they were heading to Annan, but she really liked the scenery, and she knows that this river sings with its water to the whole city. The girl saw a lot of people and asked why there were so many of them, and the man explained that they had been waiting for her for a very long time. The princess turns to the gentleman and claims that she will not let him down, and then asks how far they are from the city because she does not see the pier. Halit explains that they will not stop at the pier, and then screaming orders to fold the sails. Hearing this, the main character asks how he can do this because they are in the middle of the river. I understand how they will sail if they fold the sails. He suggests not to worry, because everything will be fine. The priestesses began to sing a song about how the golden raft that created the world descended from the sky and opened the world, the water flowing from side to side. Hearing this, the main character thought that this song was like the wind and waves leading a ship with lowered sails. Halit received the blessing of magic, born in the magical void, and the mysterious woman who attracted the attention of the dragon with happy amethyst-colored eyes. They came in a golden raft, came from the edge of the horizon. Fate decreed it as if it was waiting for a prince who was not allowed to return home for a very long time, and the girl became interested in whether there are other such beautiful stories and believes that she will succeed. Halit suggests going together, but she must close her eyes and count to 7. The main character understands that this man is her betrothed and future emperor. She is this man's bride and truly loves him. That's why she is here. And when Nalasi opened her eyes, she heard that the Khalit crown prince Irina in the imperial city of the Holy Empire solemnly announced that he had returned with the most amazing bride with whom he would spend his entire life. Lei became interested if this is the imperial palace of Iran, and the man who was sitting was the Emperor Sarim, and his wife, the Empress Kalka, and Prince Surid. And this is the family of Khalit. The girl thinks that all this confuses her. Halit says that he returned after fulfilling the order of His Majesty because he delivered half of the precious stones mined in another country to the port of Kajak. The emperor says that he knows that he has completed the task and then asks his son if he thinks that he should tell something else first. The young gentleman looked at the young lady and then hugged her and asked to be allowed to introduce Nelisi, the woman who would become his wife, and then he kissed her. Hearing this, the father turns to Her Highness and says that they must make an announcement and organize the wedding of the crown prince, and then says that returning with the bride and not saying a word is sad. High Priest Cyrus claims that in light of recent events, they must hold the wedding as soon as possible and almost tomorrow. But the emperor reports that there is no need for such haste, since the priests must first choose a suitable date. The man says that they will choose a date and make an official announcement, and then asks where the High Priest of Water is. At this time, the prince does not understand why there is such a rush, because they just returned, and the man suggests immediately informing the High Priest of Water and hurrying, because we are talking about the wedding of the crown prince. The main character watches all this in surprise and asks why everyone is so excited. The prince explains that he is usually conservative and asks if she wants to make sure of it. Simon, when he saw how the prince looked at this girl, screamed and said that they should urgently call a council. The young gentleman tells the lady that there is one thing she should not doubt, and that is his modesty. And at that time, she thought that it seemed to her that these people do not know the real Khalit. The empress asks the girl if she was named after the sea goddess Nalesi. At this time, Lei ponders whether she is imagining things or whether they are at odds with each other. The woman says that she was named after a goddess, and she hopes that she will have the same end as hers. Upon hearing this, the main character does not understand what it means. Nilas is the name of the legendary goddess of the seas, and originally Irene was a federation created by one of the 4 royal families in different regions. Tell different legends about the goddess. The legends of the south and north tell of a stupid or unhappy love story, but the legend of the sea goddess Niles is more cheerful. It is somewhat similar to a fairy tale telling how the sea goddess fell in love with a man, and was able to cope with the fact that other gods did not accept this love, and they lived happily ever after. Lei thinks that something is bothering this lady because she looks sad, and therefore decides not to aggravate the situation, and then turns to Her Majesty and says that he doubts that her words will calm her down. The princess says that if she gives them her blessing, she is sure that it will be a great start to their marriage. The empress claims that of course she will give them her blessing. After all, she was waiting for this marriage, and then she welcomes Nalasis. The owner says that he is sorry that she had to go through this because not much time has passed since the day of birth. The woman says that it is not worth it because serving him brings her and her child great joy. The owner offers to tell her everything she saw today, and the woman reports that the crown prince and his bride have arrived at the imperial castle. He asks if her powers have awakened. The sorceress replies that together with the priestesses, she tried to engrave the rune on precious stones, and she managed to engrave the rune of the ship, but she was still unable to do anything divine, and it seems that she will need time before she can cast complex spells. The gentleman realizes that this is all taking longer than he expected, and this is complicating things, and the lady wonders if they should attack during the wedding ceremony, as she thinks it is a great chance, as they will let their guard down during the festive festival. The sorceress says that since Lana will soon be leaving to guard the border, they will have one less experienced warrior. The magician thinks that this will definitely be a great gift for Khalit. The knight turns to Her Highness and says that she is amazing because she settled everything with Lana so easily. Lanahan turns to the lady and says that she swore to be her knight, and now she needs to leave before their wedding ceremony, and she is very ashamed of this and therefore asks to forgive her. Lacey claims that she has nothing to apologize for because she is the head of the Cerebral Guard, and it is her duty, and then asks her to get up from her knees because instead of an apology, she wants her as her knight to promise her something. The lady offers to promise to take care of herself and not get hurt before she returns, and then asks if she can promise her this. Lanahan promises that he will return without a scratch, and the lady says that she believes her. Nefer reports that now that Lana has gone to defend the border, Khalit will also leave the imperial palace immediately after the wedding, because she understands that all this happened so quickly, but she became interested in how it is possible to hold a wedding celebration in just 3 days. At this time, the main character thought that there were too many eyes watching her here, and it would be much easier for her when they left for Cerebra, because there were so many people there. Lei says that she is sorry that she will not be able to learn much more about this place before their departure, because she wanted to learn more about the place where Khalit grew up. The blonde says she hopes it will be a consolation to her that he didn't spend much time here as a child, since it's true that he was born here. Nefer reports that because his powers were too unstable when he was young, he spent most of his time in isolation in a water sanctuary. The girl asks in surprise what unstable means, and the woman explains that he was born with very powerful magic, so powerful that this force caused him harm. And as she heard, the late empress greatly helped Khalit. The blonde reports that as a result, he learned to control the huge flow of magic flowing in his body. And although he wears many different magic-suppressing items as a precaution, she is sure that the lady herself saw that he is overflowing with manas. Nefer says that, to be honest, she is pissed off by how amazing he is. The princess says that she is glad that everything is okay with him now, and at that time, she thought that she wonders if their horoscope compatibility helped him in any way. The woman says that they are here, and that a hallet has grown here, and that their wedding ceremony will take place here. And this place is called a water sanctuary, and then asks if it is beautiful. The girl saw that the fresco depicted the story of Irina's origin and the creation of the introductory sanctuary. Nefer reports that this relic can only be seen here, that Simon described her to her, but to see her in person was somehow unexpected. She looked closely and thought that it seemed familiar, and remembered that the guy told her that she should wait for him. The knight asks the lady if everything is okay with her, and at this time, the main character does not understand that it was an illusion or a dream, because she became interested in what he was doing there. The girl remembered the prince's question, whether she really didn't remember who he was, or was just pretending. She knew that he had asked her this question over and over again, and each time she was sure of her answer, but she realized that now she was forced to doubt everything, even her memories, which she had always been sure of. Nalasi asks why, and also wonders if he was there, and at this time she loses consciousness. After the death of her mother, the main character did nothing but wait for her mother to return, or for her death to free her from the debts that her mother left behind. The girl understands that this is not what she expected. She fulfilled the prince's words that he promised to return to her, and she had to wait for him. Lacey believes that the boy who once appeared in front of her and then disappeared was a miracle, and she had to survive if she wanted to see him again. And even if for this she had to wander the dirty streets and beg for money, she had to do everything to survive. The little girl knew that the day would come when they would be united with him again, and told herself that she would do anything to wait for that day. The girl asks if Her Highness is awake, and then says that it is an honor to finally meet her, and says that her name is Shakira, and she is the High Priestess of the Earth. The woman looked at the young lady and smiled, and then said that she understood correctly because she was the wife of that man with the loud voice. Shakira says that the crown prince wanted to stay with her until she woke up, but he had no choice, and the emperor called him, and he had to leave, but he will return soon. Lei explains that she didn't mean that she missed him or anything like that, and then says that she just dreamed about him, and it was such a weird dream. The high priestess informs Her Highness that it was not a dream, but a fragment of her forgotten memories. The young lady asks in surprise what forgotten memories she is talking about, and also asks what she knows. The lady replies that, to be honest, the crown prince knows, and she only planned to help her regain her memories on their wedding day. Shakira thinks that it seems her strong will has already begun to push her to remember, and Lei says that she is still not sure what exactly she saw. The priestess explains that this is because whoever was responsible for the loss of her memories did everything possible to ensure that she would never be able to collect all the fragments. The girl became interested in who did this to her, and the woman said that in order to wake her up, she had to look into her memories, and they were more detailed than she expected, because she was not exactly sure what they did to her. But one thing is clear: this has been going on for a long time. Hearing this, the main character remembered the man who told her that she should remember to always take away someone else's things, but at the same time, not allow anyone to take away something of hers. The young lady believes that this man is behind all this, and she does not understand how he could do it, because she always thought that these people were her only family. Shakira suggests considering it an illness, because she has been sick for so long that now she will need time to recover. But this does not mean that it cannot be cured. Nalasi screams and asks what she should do to fix it. At that moment, the gentleman enters the room and asks if she is awake. The priestess tells the prince that when he is finished, she needs to talk to him, because she has something to tell him, and then leaves them alone. The girl turns to the guy and doesn't understand what to do because she can't look him in the eyes. Halit touches the lady's face and asks if she slept well, and at this time, she doesn't even know what to answer, because she wants to ask him so many questions. Lee wonders what he did that day and why he looked so desperate. She wonders why he suddenly disappeared and how he managed to find her, and what it was like for him during her unconsciousness. The main character understands that she shouldn't become emotional just because memories started to return to her, and thinks that she must look so stupid now. And at this time, the prince hugs the girl and asks her to listen to him, because he knows that now everything seems confusing to her. He suggests that she rest a little and think everything over, and after that, she can ask him about anything she wants, because no one is rushing her and they still have a lot of time. Shakira tells the master that it is not only that she has forgotten the past, and then says that some memories have been changed, and she does not know how this can be done without using magic. The priestess says that if it weren't for his horoscope compatibility and the signals sent by her inner strength, it would be very difficult to get to her memories. The woman reports that she heard the voice of the mistress when she was in her head. And if everything goes well and she manages to awaken her magic, the restoration of memories and strength will be only a matter of time. At this time, the main character thinks that this must be her inner strength, and she wonders what Fiora and that man did to her. The prince asks Nalasi if she is feeling better, and then asks for forgiveness for not telling her the whole truth right away, because he did not intend to keep it a secret forever. The lady believes that while they were in another country, he could not tell her anything because of the ban. And when they arrived here, he understood that she would not believe him, and therefore believes that he has nothing to apologize for because he did nothing wrong. Halit smiled and said that everything she said was true, but the only reason he didn't tell her anything was because he was afraid she would run away from him. The girl asks in surprise what he is talking about, and the guy asks her to think about it because she was his main goal from the very beginning. Lee wonders if he came to Weldon to find her, and at that moment, she realized that he had been thinking about her for the past 10 years. The man asks if she regrets that she came on board his ship that day. The young lady thought that she doesn't really believe in fate, but she knows that life is full of surprises. Lei believes that fateful encounters in her life were not always pleasant and happy. For example, her relationship with Madame Fiora, or the ship she secretly boarded, and with whose owner she unexpectedly entered into an agreement. The girl wondered if she hated being on the ship as much as she hated being with Fiora. She doesn't understand why she played different roles for most of her life, because now she can't decide to stay in the warm embrace of this man. The young lady apologizes and then explains that she needs time, and the prince asks in surprise what is going on. She wonders if it is normal that she will just stay with him like that. Halit asks to tell him why this worries her so much, because if her feelings are so strong that they make her worry, then he wonders why she hesitates. Lee explains that she spent almost her entire life pretending to be someone else, and that she was a servant who betrayed her master, a count's mistress, a homeless woman who deliberately forced others to mock her, a cheater who tried to commit suicide, Veronica. Lacey tells him that she played these roles well because it was the only way she could survive, and she doesn't know what it's like to be herself when he's around, and then tells him that she'll most likely continue to deceive him and everyone else, and he'll end up regretting his decision. Khalid would regret it. The man says that he doesn't care, even if she deceives him, because he believes that she can play any role next to him, because those years that he spent looking for her so that they could finally be together were not as terrible as all those years during which he did not know her. Halit tells the girl that he doesn't care if she ends up regretting her decision, and then he hugs and kisses her. So the main character realized that the Khalit gave her power over himself, and then came the selfish thought that now she has every right to hurt him and make him regret his decisions. Zephyr tells the gentleman that as a person not particularly experienced in such matters, he did an excellent job and managed to console her. His Highness explains that this is because he understands that she is in great pain, because he wished that there was at least someone next to him when he was alone trying to control his magic. Tiger believes that this is the first time he has spoken about that time, and in any case, he was very upset by his lack of any progress, but is glad to know that everything worked out for him. Zephyr says that as he understands it, the gentleman is in excellent physical shape, and this is due to their compatibility. Halit agrees with him and claims that he feels better than ever, and at that time remembered the girl's words, that in the end it will be he who regrets his decision. The prince looked at the sleeping Nalasi and thought that she should hold on to this thought as long as possible, because he hoped that she would always think about the fact that one day he would regret his decisions, and then she herself would not have time to regret them, only so that she would stay with him longer. The man says that there is no need to be afraid of him because he has no intention of harming his mistress, and in any case, being her Teru, he himself knows what is best for her. Zephyr reports that he has noticed something hovering over Nalasi while she sleeps, but today is the first time that something has taken shape, and he believes it won't last long. A few days later, the lady says that time flies so quickly and asks if she is right, since their wedding day has already arrived. And as expected, this day has arrived so hastily. Nefer turns to her Highness and says that she looks tired, and then asks what keeps her awake at night. The lady says that she knows that Halit is forbidden to see her while the purification period is in progress. Nelisi explains that she is just very nervous, that's all, and asks not to allow the lovers to see each other before the wedding. Doesn't it seem a bit old-fashioned? The blonde says that she actually heard that he almost cried on the first day of the cleansing, and she is sorry that this period lasted only a week because she would have liked him to suffer much longer. Hearing this, the main character realized that he did not cry because he came to her, but she could not say this. The girl asks, "What if someone finds out?" And the prince suggests that she relax since no one will find out. Lei asks if he thinks it's complete nonsense to force them to undergo purification, and that doesn't mean he can secretly sneak into her room. Halit says that she is heartless and asks to at least allow him to stay here, and then says that he knows that it will be difficult, but offers to try to cope with it. The young gentleman says that in return, he promises that on their wedding night, he will pay her for all the nights she spent alone, and then he hugs the girl. Lei offers to let her go because it is very hot here. The girl understands that he must have been waiting for this all week, but does not know what to do. Simon turns to His Highness and says that he looks pleased, and the master asks why he should not be pleased. The assistant explains that just a week ago, he acted as if the world had collapsed and thought that something was wrong here. The gentleman says he heard that envoys from the north have arrived. Simon says that they represent Princess Ignar and thinks that it looks like they are ready to do anything to get to his wedding. The assistant says that after all, it is a great honor to be invited to the wedding of a member of the royal family, Irene. Usually, such an honor is given to close relatives, but since the parents of their bride will not be able to come to the wedding, their places were given to the Eastern Prince Khalif and Princess Nefer from the south. But only the representatives of the north did not receive an invitation. Simon turns to His Highness and says that they already have strained relations with the kingdom of Ingarte, and if he ignores them, their relations will become even worse. The prince asks if they were ever good. The man replies that Princess Ignar is engaged to Prince Surid, and in addition, the kingdom of Ignarte guards their northern border with their water sanctuary. Simon is considered that if the High Priestess of Water promises the Princess Ignar a place, and at that time he fell silent because he saw the High Priestess of Water Matisse. The prince turns to the woman and says that his aunt is not always eager to fulfill the requests of her relatives. The Water Priestess tells the prince to never forget those who sacrificed themselves for him, and he says that he hopes that she will not forget either. The woman believes that they cannot allow her death to be in vain. Halit says that he is sure that his aunt remembers very well why his grandmother sacrificed herself. The maidess thought about how he dared to speak to her like that, and considered him an unbearable monster. The woman turns to Her Eminence and says that she is so glad to see them again. Princess Ignar, thank you for meeting her so quickly. Maidess reminds her that she said she wanted to talk to her about something. The princess explains that her father is actually very worried about the gravity of the current situation. The lady says that in the west, the border of Irina is guarded by the warriors of Suribor, in the east by Hazek, in the south by Sennar, and the kingdom of Ingarte in the north. The lady says that the contribution to the defense of their borders was not taken into account at all when guests were invited to the royal wedding. Ignar reports that she came to find out that it is possible that the High Priestess of Water will be so kind and condescend to Ingarte. The priestess says that when she says will descend, she wonders if she means that she wants to receive an invitation to the wedding of the crown prince, and then says that she is afraid that this is impossible. The half-breed claims that it is impossible to change the decision made by the imperial family, the council and the four saints right on the day of the wedding ceremony. The woman says that she cannot help her with this, but everything can change if a free space suddenly appears. Hearing this, the princess was delighted, and then thanked for the good advice. When she left, the lady thought that she was a stupid girl. The assistant asks the priestess if she wasn't glad to see the princess after so much time, and thinks that she looks very similar. Métis says that he is right, because she really does look like his mother, Rametis, who died because of this bloodthirsty monster. At this time, the main character became interested in how many rituals they would have to go through during the ceremony, and thinks that it is so tiring. But she is interested in how the prince is, and thinks that he has probably already exploded from anger more than once. Karim, goddess of the seas and progenitor of the kingdom of Irene. She fell in love with Sirim, the sun god, and their children founded the empire, now known as Irene. Sirim and Karim were inseparable and truly loved each other. The girl believes that if she remembers everything correctly, only the heirs to the throne can receive the name Sirim and Karim. Nalasi realized that this was not the first time she had seen this, and believed that it was no longer possible to write it off as a simple coincidence. The prince, lying in bed, asks the girl if she remembers the first time she called her Teru, and also asks if she remembers when she said her first word or took her first steps. Halit reports that at some point she gets used to the presence of Teru, because it's like an instinct, At this time, the main character thought about what was also happening to her, but she doesn't know whether it was instinctive or not, but she always tried to ignore it. The girl remembered that when she was a baby, someone called her master and said that she would not find her mother here and asked her to listen to him because the dead do not return to life. The young lady realizes that in the end, it didn't help her at all because the voice was telling her things she didn't want to hear. The man turns to the little girl and claims that she should not believe her words. Lei reflects on how, when her teacher erased her memories, the voice in her head became just a strange noise to her. However, now she is trying to get her memories back. The girl asks if he hates her, and the voice replies that of course not, and calls the girl master and asks how he can hate her, and then says that he is very happy that she can finally see her. Teru claims that there is no one to whom the name Karim would suit her master more. The same name is worn by the goddess of the seas and the bride who crossed the ocean for her beloved, and then asks if it is not wonderful. Zephyr tells the master that he is right, because it has been a long time since he smelled such a scent. The prince says that he thinks that Nelas really does not waste her time. Teru turns to the main character and says that it would be nice even if it took a little longer. The young gentleman tells Ignar that she is a good girl because his gift was there, which he wanted to give himself, and that is why he is so glad that she went with him. The princess asks if this is the first time they've seen each other since their engagement, and then says that she's sorry she can't visit her more often, and then thanks him for helping her get inside the palace today. Ignar understands that it is impossible to get in here without an invitation to the wedding, but she thinks that she must somehow get this invitation, and then she took the box and thought that she must do it herself. Nefer. When she saw the princess, she asked in surprise what she was doing here. Ignar did not understand why she met her, and the lady said that she could easily call her older sister. The blonde says that she sees that the cute younger brother of the terrible Khalid is here, and with her, and the guy insists that she should not call him that. Nefer asks if this is a gift for Her Highness Nalas, then says that it is a beauty and asks if he can find out what is in it. The princess replies that it is a simple ring with an amethyst, and the woman asks in surprise if it is the same one that she received from the High Priestess of Water as a child. Ignar is informed that after the wedding, Her Highness will go to the mutant-infested Cerebra, so she wanted to give her an item with a purification rune engraved on it. The princess remembered the woman's words about how everything could change if a free seat suddenly appeared, and she wondered if she could convince the princess to give up her seat at the wedding to her. At this time, Nefer thought that everything was now clear to her because she was going to give her a gift and beg her to give her place at the wedding to her, and considered this girl to be still naive. The blonde wondered if she should tell her that the princess didn't need such things. A few days ago, a woman asked Simon what this is, since she picked it up on the deck. The man replies that he thinks it's a necklace that the princess used to practice engraving runes with the priestesses. Nefer asks in surprise if he knows that the rune of purification is engraved here. He answers that yes. At this time, the lady says that she is interested in whether Nalesi will like this ring, and thought about the fact that dear Simon asked her to keep it a secret. Ignar suggests that the lady not to worry about it, because after all, it is her gift. And at this time, the lady thought that this princess is not as sweet as Simon. The priestess reports that Her Highness has completed the prayer ceremony, and Nefer offers to present a gift to Her Highness. Suddenly, the blonde felt a strange force, and realized that this person was Her Highness Nalasi, and believed that this was the reincarnation of the legendary goddess. Simon informs His Highness that Princess Nellis has arrived, and the main character asks if they have been waiting for her for a long time. At this time, the princess looked at the surprised gentleman and thought that, in her opinion, this was too much, and he wondered if this was a dream. Lei thinks that it seems that he has not yet fully realized the prince thought that, although he was aware that his princess was perfect, and then he says that today he promised himself to satisfy all her requests, and now she appeared before him in this form. Halit says that tonight he will have to put in more effort than he expected. Hearing this girl say that he is truly very cunning, Teru asks the lady if they are destined to become enemies, and she thinks that it would be better if it weren't so. The prince invites the girl to go with him, and then offers her his hand and tells her that a wedding ceremony awaits them. At this time, the princess thought that she had behaved like a fool and had ruined everything, And at this time, she remembered her father's words that she was the treasure and pride of the kingdom of Ingarta and must live up to her high status. The girl understands that without a doubt, her father will be disappointed in her, not to mention her presence. Ingar turns to Her Majesty and asks if she could accept a gift from her, because he believes that nothing could please her more than this. The princess thought about the fact that she gave her a precious ring with an amethyst, but she could not even imagine that Her Majesty had such power, and therefore was surprised because she herself did not know it. Suddenly, the servant saw the princess and was surprised, and then asked what she was doing here. He said that the wedding ceremony of the heir to the throne had already taken place. Halit says to praise hearing this. The main character reflects on the fact that she did not think that this would affect her wife, the heir to the throne, since so many people are celebrating their wedding, and she wondered if she could handle such responsibility. The prince suggests that Nelisi try not to think about anything, at least today, and then reminds her that he said that he would become the whole world for her, and then kisses her hand. Zephyr says that he can't watch this, and then turns to the mistress's Teru and offers to talk about her. Tiger reports that every time he feels all of Nelasi's power, it is impossible not to bow before her, and he perfectly understands this desire inside when she wants to boast of the strength and power of her mistress. Zephyr says that until this force becomes one with her, they all need to be careful, and then claims that when adults talk to her, they need to respond. At this time, the main character thought that now her heart was trembling and beating hard in her chest because she knew that this had never happened to her before. The magician asks the servant if he acted as ordered. He replies that he is sure that everything has already been delivered to the bride. The sorcerer says that in this case, everything should go well, since now is a good time. The man says that probably after the ritual in the water sanctuary, he will finally get everything he has wanted for so long, and he will be next to his master in the name of the future kingdom of Irind. The last ritual of the wedding ceremony is the Navo. It unites the spirituality of the couple into one whole, with the help of a combination of magic and ink diluted in water. The priest blesses the couple and applies a corresponding pattern to the bodies of the bride and groom to create an unbreakable bond. Since the patterns are applied to the bodies simultaneously, they can only be removed simultaneously, and if someone decides to remove them, and at that time, the prince thought that he definitely had no intention of removing them. Shakira reports that the now has been applied and asks to accept her heartfelt congratulations as she welcomes the new union, and then reminds that there is still one last step left, and this wine is made from grapes growing in sanctums. The priestess says that she blesses the fruit grown from generation to generation and prays that this blessing extends to their children and grandchildren. The prince quietly asks the girl if she can pretend to drink and also touches his lips to the glass of wine. The water priestess announces that from now on, their souls are immortal, just as their bodies were given life on earth. So their souls receive immortality, and they will become gods. The maidess says that they will become the heart of Anu, and their children will become the descendants of the gods. The woman names the descendants of Sirim and Karim, those who in the future will bear the title of Hartman. Auntie says that, in the name of the daughter of the Remetis, the ceremony is over, and bridal chambers have been prepared for them, where they can be alone, and they should know that the doors will close behind them as soon as they enter the chambers. The half-breed says that no one will disturb them for 3 days. Suddenly, the main character faints, and the prince takes her in his arms and screams, telling her to open the doors quickly. The princess asks in surprise what is happening and where he is in such a hurry, but she thinks that this is not the issue and that something is wrong with her. Zephyr says that something happened to her magic because it is extremely unstable, and it seemed strange to him that her Teru suddenly disappeared. The prince asks when this happened, and he replies that it was immediately after they entered the altar room. The gentleman reflects on the fact that her peaceful appearance was just a pretense, and he does not understand how he did not notice it. Nelisi tells Halit that she feels strange, and then asks how the ceremony went. He screams and claims that it has some meaning now, while the girl loses consciousness. The main character does not understand how everything came to this, because at first she just had a slight fever and did not pay attention to it because she thought that she was just nervous before the wedding ceremony. Lei remembered that it was only when she stopped hearing Tara that she realized that something was wrong, but she didn't fully understand what was happening. The young lady knew that if she lost consciousness, she would ruin the wedding ceremony, and she also knew that whoever planned it all was counting on exactly that. The girl understands that Halit had been waiting for this day for so long, but she didn't want to ruin his holiday, and thought that she should just endure the pain and pretend for his sake, because he told her to do what she does best. The prince asks the girl if she is awake, and at that time the lady thinks that it is hard for her to breathe. Halit claims that everything is fine because all the poison has left her body. He hugged the girl, and she says that she is too hot, and it is hard for her to breathe. The young gentleman says that everything is fine now, and he is nearby, and therefore believes that nothing will happen to her, and then kisses her. At this time, the main character thought that his breath was similar to the life that he instilled in her. Halit thinks that she ate something she shouldn't have, but she understands that the food was prepared for her with special care, and then asks if she remembers what exactly she ate before the wedding ceremony. The prince thinks that judging by how quickly the poison left her body, it was not fatal, but he knows that she still has difficulty breathing and the fever has not gone away. The gentleman understands that this happens if you overdo it with magic stimulants, because the stimulant helps those who have depleted their magic reserves. But if they are consumed by someone whose magical powers have only recently begun to awaken, they can cause dangerous side effects and even lead to death. Halit suggests trying to remember what she ate. The main character remembers that, for breakfast, she had soup with pastries and a glass of water. Then she drank a glass of juice to quench her thirst and calm her nerves. The girl remembered the guy said that he picked this pomegranate from his favorite tree and hoped that she would accept this modest wedding gift from him. Nelisi reports that his younger brother brought her a pomegranate, and the gentleman asks who else was with her, and also wonders if anyone thought to check it before giving it to her. The little girl says that she is hot, and he explains that he knows that it is difficult for her, but asks her to try to remember. The main character hugged the man and said that his body was very cold, but he said that hers was hot, and that this was not how he wanted to spend their first wedding night. The prince claims that whoever did this to her will not escape retribution, and then says that she must cope and hugs her tightly. The half-breed asks the lady if she came to check on her, and the lady replies that she knows perfectly well that she didn't come for that. Shakira says that they, as high priestesses, must discuss what happened to the prince's wife during the ceremony. The half-breed says he thinks she came to confirm her suspicions, not to express concern. The lady says she did have vague suspicions, but not about her. The priestess says that, to be more precise, she thinks that what happened to the princess is not only her doing. Auntie claims that this means only one thing, that she also has not determined who is behind it. Shakira reports that she first noticed the instability of the princess's magic when canal was applied to her body, but she attributed it to the fact that her power had only just awakened. The lady believes that this is a completely normal phenomenon in such a situation, when magic and teru are still unstable, and it would be reckless of her to claim that the wine she drank was the cause of the instability of her magic. The priestess says that it is also necessary to admit that for her interference with her magic does not bring any benefit. The half-breed agrees with the lady and says that she is right, because she does not need this, and then says that the most interesting thing in this whole story is that they did not take a sip from the cups of wine. Auntie says that knowing that they only got a blessing from her, for some reason she still came to her. Shakira reports that the cups were not just a blessing for them, and the wine she prepared contained a fertility potion. Midas says that she is not the only one in this kingdom who wants an heir to be conceived as soon as possible, especially considering that the child of these yours will have enormous powers. The priestess says in surprise that they just got married and thinks there is no need to rush, and the woman claims that there is nothing wrong with building the future by predicting it. Auntie says you never know when this monster will lose control of himself again. Hearing this, the lady claims that Halit is no longer a danger. The woman asks if she can guarantee that what happened in the past will not happen again. Midas remembered that she had to check something, and then said that she needed to check, because suddenly, the same thing that killed one of the previous contenders for the role of Khalit's wife would happen to Her Highness. Lay. When she saw the prince, she screamed and asked why he was walking around completely naked. He asked what the problem was because he would have taken off his clothes anyway, and besides, he undressed because of her. The gentleman reminds her that last night she begged him to hug her and asks when she got better, and if he was no longer needed. Then he says he has to say that it breaks his heart. The girl says that she didn't say that, and then screams and orders him to get dressed immediately. Nalasi looked at the table with food and said that it looked delicious, and she was just getting hungry. The lady wonders if that means they have to spend the next 3 days here together. The man says that it does, and she thinks about how he finally got dressed. The prince explains that this is the final stage of their wedding ceremony, and they say that, long ago, to avoid the prying eyes of the other gods, Karim and Sirim made love in a cave. Halit says that she can consider that they are paying homage to the past. The baby thinks that it is something like a honeymoon, since she is married to him now. The gentleman says that it is time to talk about what happened, and the lady asks if he really believes that this is the work of Prince Suhridai. The prince says whether he wanted to harm her or not, but now he is the potential suspect. The girl realizes that she wasn't the only one who ate the pomegranate, and that Princess Nefer and Prince Caliph ate it with her. And she wonders what he wanted to achieve with this stimulant. And then she reminds him that he said that it wasn't even a lethal dose. Lei thinks that if he tried to interfere with the ceremony, then there are other ways to ruin it. And at that time, she looked at the guy, and she became interested in what he was thinking about. The princess asks what he is hiding from her. The caliph asks in surprise what he could be hiding from her. The little girl thought it was strange, because usually he immediately tries to convince her, but she thinks that he is definitely hiding something. The main character reflects on the fact that even though he behaves secretively, she should not be offended by him for this, since they are not here to destroy the boundaries established by them. The girl thinks that even though she doesn't know what he's hiding, she also has secrets from him, so these boundaries between them calm her down. But still, if these walls that they built suddenly fell, who would be better? Nilatsi touches the man and says that she will not ask about anything, but she will not pretend that she does not notice anything either, especially if what happened concerns hers. The prince kissed the girl and asked if he was really that predictable. She said that she would prefer that he told her everything rather than try to hide it. The caliph says that he only did this because he wants her to focus on them, and if in the future he hides something from her again, it will be for this reason, only because everything he does is for her. The gentleman thought that he doesn't know who exactly is behind this, but he knows why they did it, because by threatening Nalasi's life, they were trying to intimidate him. The prince wondered if they were still trying to take away everything that belonged to him. At this time, Ignar does not know what to do because it is unlikely that she can return it to him personally. The man says that he thinks he heard the princess's voice somewhere here, and at that time the girl hid and thought that she didn't want anyone to see her like this because she thought it was a shame. The gentleman took off his cloak and then covered the girl with it and said that it seemed that Her Highness was in a difficult situation, and if he allowed it, he would help sort it out and asked her to wait a little. The princess thought about how he was walking around the imperial palace with his nose in the air, and he himself was a commoner, but they understood that it was all her fault. The servant turns to the commoner and asks if he has seen the Princess Ignar, and the guard suggests not to waste words because he does not understand why ask someone like him, and then they leave. The lady thought that if this was a warrior from a lower class, then it must be Sana, the servant of the crown prince, and she wondered how she could apologize to him. Nefer asks the princess in surprise what she is doing here, and Ignar is interested in what she is doing here. The lady explains that she asked first, and the princess says that she was just out for a walk. The blonde asks if she wants to say that she came all this way to walk in the palace of the crown prince, and not in the beautiful garden of her fiancé. Nefer looked at the cloak that the princess was holding in her hands and asked if it didn't belong to the rank. Hearing this, Ignar does not know what she should say, and asks screaming if she can give it to him for her. The lady realized that this cloak belongs to him, and wonders if he really gave it to her. And then she says whether she wants to say that the almighty Ignar wandered around the palace to return the soldier his cloak, and not to mention that she asks for her help in this matter. The princess says that she understands that this is unnecessary trouble, but she does not know how to return his cloak to him without violating the rules of decency.